were the outcomes from that study. We'll briefly talk about the process that goes into this type of analysis, and then we'll dive into this update, focusing on some of the key factors, assumptions, and then finally results of the key steps. Just due to timing that we have allocated for the presentation, I might be moving pretty quickly, so if I am talking pretty fast, do let me know. Now, as a quick background, the last study completed was in 2023. We did perform a 5-year projection, and based on the discussions at that time, 2 years were adopted from that 5-year plan, and then we wanted to revisit our rates before any additional rates are implemented, just because some of the uncertainty that we were experiencing that time. So the major drivers of that study were related to high inflation. We're coming out of the pandemic. We saw supply chain pressures, as well as increased power costs from Bonneville, as well as some major capital projects that we had identified that we needed to construct at the time. In addition to the overall rate strategy, we developed 2 new rate schedules, Schedule 4 and Schedule 5, which are related to new large loads coming onto the system, kind of to safeguard the system, existing customers from the additional pressures from power costs related to these type of customers. Schedule 4 focused on smaller type of connections, any loads above 1 average megawatt or 2 megawatt peaks. Schedule 5 focused on the bigger connections above 10 average megawatts, which is in line with Bonneville definitions of a new large load. Those come with some substantial costs to the city, so we definitely wanted to have a safeguard in place, a rate schedule in place in that situation. Now, if you can go back 1 second. Now, some significant changes have occurred since that study. The major one is Bonneville just finished adopting rates as recently as last month of July. The combined impact to the city is about 9.1%, which is made up about 8.8% to the power portion of the costs, and almost 15% of transmission. The majority of the charges are related to power. About 88% of total expenses are power related, so that's why the average increase is 9.1. We're also anticipating that 2 new loads will be joining the system in the next 5 years, and we'll have a good discussion about that, I think, because there is some uncertainty with those loads, but everything is pointing to these connections joining, and if they do at the schedule that we have anticipated, they would more than double our electricity usage in the system. Now, in terms of the overall rate study, we can quickly summarize it in 2 analytical steps. First, we have to define our overall needs through what we call revenue requirement analysis. Once we have established the overall dollar target on a multi-year basis, we move on to rate design. This is the actual development of the fixed and variable rates. So let's start with the first step, revenue requirement. Now, at the very basic level, all it is a comparison of your rates to your ongoing obligations. Here, we want to make sure that any strategy we develop allows us to keep our electric rates self-sufficient. We're not relying on external sources, on other utilities, because not every electric customer is a water customer or a sewer customer, and so forth. When developing the analysis, we're really making sure that we can cover our direct costs, such as operating capital, power, debt service, but also our indirect costs, such as appropriate financial policies, to make sure we're sustainable, not just today, but into the future. When the revenue requirement is established, really break it down into 5 key elements or key components. The first one is putting a monetary value to the policies that we have established. Then forecasting revenues at current rates. Just we never want to assume there's going to be an increase. Then we forecast costs, breaking them down to the more consistent operating and power costs, and more kind of a peaky type costs related to capital and debt service. Now, a big, significant component of any electric rate study is really the load forecast. And as I mentioned in the introduction, we're going to be looking at some alternatives for your consideration. We're looking at growth for our current system in place today. So just natural growth that we have experienced, which is fairly modest at 0.5%, 0% to 0.5%, depending on the class of service. But on average, we're anticipating just our current system growing at less than 0.5% per year. 31 average megawatts, not even getting up to 31.5 in the next 5 years. If the new large loads connect as we anticipated them to connect, they'll add up to 52 average megawatts by the 5th year of the forecast, continuing beyond that. And the total system will grow from 31 average megawatts all the way up to 84. So because of this significant impact of load, we're actually going to be discussing 2 options, looking at the business as usual without new large loads, as well as with the addition of the new large loads. Now, starting with some of the initial elements, with the existing revenues, we are forecasting for the next 5 years of 26 through fiscal year 2030. We wanted to take a look and include all the revenue sources at our disposal, including non-rate revenues, which include connection charges, conservation revenues, clean fuel, rental income, as well as other miscellaneous like interest income sources. Overall, while these are great revenue sources, they only make up about 2% depending on the year of our total revenue profile. So the majority of funds are coming from our monthly utility fees. Now, if we're looking at the new large loads, the way we structured our Schedule 4 and Schedule 5 rates during the last study is that we would be passing on the cost of power to them. So if the load does materialize, they can generate about $43 million on their own into the future projection. So if we look at current levels of revenues before any kind of rate strategy discussion, we're at $27 million. With new large loads, we can get up as high as $70 million in the next 5 years. On the expenses side, we started the forecast with your current budgets that you have discussed internally already. These include budgets for fiscal year 25, 6, and 7, because we do have to forecast this, fund balances and every expense line item. We did review the expenses in detail with your staff to make sure there's no one-time costs that are being carried forward. And we are including costs related to equipment replacement reserve, transfers. But all in all, our average inflation, when we put everything together, is about 3.5%, which doesn't include pilot because pilot grows, which pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes, grows proportionally based on revenues. So if we have greater revenues coming in from new large loads, the pilot transfer will increase proportionally. So overall inflation, we're assuming, is about 3.5% average. The expenses are anticipated to go up about 12.7 to 16.3. That is inclusive of the pilot growth from new large load payments. On the power front, as I mentioned in the introduction, we are including the latest billing determinants from Bonneville Power. Now, historically, Bonneville Power Administration sets rates on a 2-year cycle. So they set a rate effective October. That's the beginning of a federal fiscal year. And then those rates are in effect for 2 years. So they do 2-year rate increases. This year is a little bit unique because this is the end of the wholesale contract for all their wholesale customers. This is actually a 3-year contract period. So they're setting rates for fiscal year 25, 6, or 26, 27, and 28, with the effective months of October 1st, 25, and the last month of September 30th. After that, the new contract will revert back to a 2-year rate period. As we discussed briefly in the introduction, the power cost to the city will increase about 8.8%, which represent the majority of total purchase power at about 88%. Transmission will increase close to 15%. They're really trying to invest more in transmission, and the combined increase will be 9.1%. Overall, power represents a pretty substantial portion of your expenses, close to about 50% of total operating type costs. Now, because we are forecasting beyond just the 3 years into a 5-year period, we're anticipating there's going to be future adjustments after the new contract takes place. For now, we're assuming a 5% increase for a 2-year period for power and a slightly higher increase for transmission, because we know that they've discussed greater investments in the transmission network. But these increases are applicable to your Tier 1 cost, the cheaper cost power. Because of growth, you have exceeded your Tier 1 cost allocation, and you have already started purchasing more expensive type market-based above-rate high watermark purchases, around 4 average megawatts out of your 31 megawatt total need. Now, depending what we assume will happen with the new large loads, that may increase from 4 to as high as 63 average megawatts per year. But again, we're trying to develop those Schedule 4 and 5 rates to pass on the cost of power to these new large load connections. In total, without new large loads, we're anticipating power costs in the 14 to 15 million range. With the new large loads, it will be $14 to $52 million. On the capital front, we're anticipating about $12.6 million of costs inflated to the year of construction from 26 through 30 fiscal years. The funding for these projects are anticipated to come from rates, current reserves, transfers from the equipment reserve balances, as well as a couple of projects that are slated to be funded partially through grants. And we have set aside in the past some RDC funds, which came from Bonneville. Bonneville did provide a credit back to their customers over the last couple rate cycles. The city has elected to keep those funds in place and help us offset some of our capital projects. And then lastly, the debt service of about $3.6 million anticipated in this current fiscal year, which just started in July. This is consistent to our prior rate study that we did in 23. We were anticipating the need for debt service for some of the bigger substation related projects. We currently have about $300,000 of existing debt, and this new debt service would add another $300,000 to our forecast. That's assuming a typical 20-year term bond, 5% interest rate, and 1% issuance cost. You can kind of see visually outside of the large investment into the substation, we get back to more historical lower levels of spending after that initial spend. And again, the timing and the quantity of the cost of the project is consistent with the prior rate study. The last element to talk about is the financial policy element. And then here we brought back the policies we've utilized in the past. The first are related to reserves, starting with the operating reserves, which act as a liquidity cushion for that fluctuation of revenues coming in at a different pace as expenses coming out. In general, historically, we've targeted 60 days, or about 17% of operating and maintenance expenses, as well as power, which is about $4.5 to almost $5 million that we would need to have on hand for this purpose. If we do include the new large loads, that upper end would grow to about $11 million that we would have on hand, because our costs would swing greater because the power would be greater, so we would need to have more cash on hand. On the capital side, we do also have a reserve for emergencies, cost overruns, or unanticipated projects. This is not intended to be a catastrophic event type of a fund, just a minor emergency repair type fund. A good practice to have is about 1% of plant that the city has done in the past, which represents another $600,000 to $700,000. Now, any of these reserves, once they're met, we don't need to set any more aside for this purpose. So again, this is just a metric to have at a minimum, to establish our minimum target. The last policy that we have in here is the debt service coverage target, which comes with specific type loans and revenue bond in particular obligations. It's more of an surety to our credit holders that we can repay our obligation. And the coverage ratio is simply a ratio of revenues net of expenses, need to generate enough cash flow to not only cover the debt payment, but also generate a cushion. And the higher the policy that we can target, the greater our rating could potentially be, which could save us money in future issuances on interest of the debt. Now, those are the elements. Now, as we bring them together to look at the revenue requirement, as I mentioned before, we wanted to look at two scenarios for your consideration. One, looking at, well, what happens if the loads don't materialize? And the second one looks at, well, what happens if they do at the levels that we anticipate? So the first slide here, we'll look at the summary of the revenue requirement without new large loads connecting. Here, the bars are representing expenses and make up cash operating expenses in the darker portion of the bottom of the bar, of each bar. The green portion represents our total power costs. As you can see, it's about half of total expenses projected here. And the upper portion in the violet color shows our net capital, net of grants or RDC contributions. We also have a very small sliver of existing debt in the orange, but it's very hard to see because it's so small compared to all other costs. We compare these bars to the solid black line at the top, which is revenues at current levels. And you can see that starting pretty much right away, we're barely breaking even with our power costs, and we might be a little short with making debt payments. As our expenses outpace our revenues and just growth and connections to the city, our expenses become greater than our revenues. Starting in 27, we're not able to meet our debt obligations, and then 28, we're not able to meet our power costs as well if nothing is done with our rate action. None of this even takes into account the capital needs that needs to be covered. If you look at the bottom portion of the chart, the yellow component, the shaded area, represents our fund balances. And again, without any adjustments to our plans and rate strategies, we're not going to be able to meet our minimum targets for reserves, which is represented with a dashed line going over each year. Starting in 27, if we try to build our capital program, we'll run out of funds and go negative in this scenario. Looking at this slide, which adds in the new large loads, because the rate schedules that we have prepared in the last rate study pass on the cost of power. You can see the solid black line ramps up as our load growth over time. Now, the first 2 years are going to be pretty similar to the prior scenario because the new large loads are not anticipated to connect until later on in the forecast period. So we're still deficient in 26 and slightly deficient in 27, but as the new large load ramps up and keeps up with their own power costs, we are looking like we can meet our obligations in the outer years. So the short term, we would drop our reserves below our targets. And in the long term, that the deficiency would grow slightly, but we would be able to build our capital plan. We just won't be able to have enough funds for those fluctuations. And it would be a little bit more challenging because we do have pretty big fluctuations month to month. Here we're looking at it on an annual basis. On a month to month basis, there would be greater fluctuations and dips, ups and down, up above the minimum, below the minimum throughout the year period. So in summary, looking at the short term, the first 2 years of 26 and 27, revenues at current levels for both scenarios are not sufficient to keep up with our power costs, our O&M expenses, and capital needs. Our operating reserves in both scenarios are below target for the beginning time period. And in scenario one, if nothing occurs, we would go deficient in our balances by 2027. Looking at longer term, 28 through 30, that last 3-year period of the 5-year plan, we are showing the deficiencies to grow for scenario one. With scenario two, we stabilize, but we are a little bit below our targets. So again, because of the volatility in the power market, we do have higher reserves, but we're at least able to keep up above kind of the 0 point as we are projecting for scenario one. So what does that mean? On this slide, we wanted to provide you with 2 alternatives how to resolve our deficiencies. Now you'll notice that we're highlighting the first 2 years of 26 and 27. Both scenarios are very similar from a proposed rate action for these options at 3.25% around historical levels of inflation. Again, because our pressure is coming short term from increases from Bonneville Power Administration as well as our capital needs, which we were anticipating for quite some time. The short term is not changing because the new large loads are not really anticipated to connect and ramp up until the middle of the forecast. Once the new large loads connect, there is a deviation from the scenarios. If they do connect at the pace that we're anticipating, we're not forecasting a need for any adjustments in the last 3 years. If the new large loads don't materialize, we would need to continue with inflationary level adjustments. Some positive news is that the updated scenario is below our prior forecast. The prior study did anticipate a 5% rate increase in 26. We are showing that we're able to bring that down to about 3.25%. With that concludes the first step of the study. And now let's quickly go through the second step, the rate design. Again, the main purpose of rate design is to develop rates that collect appropriate dollar targets identified in that first step, the revenue requirement. Once we can do that, we can also focus on goals and policy objectives of the city and the community and the utility. That could be conservation, that could be support for low-income customers, or various other type of revenue sufficiency measures. The key item to remember when discussing and considering rate design is that there's not a one-size-fits-all solution that will achieve all your goals. Really, we need to focus on the goals we're trying to achieve and then select an alternative that can help us do so at best. Because of this time around, we're not anticipating or proposing any structural changes. We're recommending just to continue to apply the increases on an across-the-board basis, where we would apply the increases to both fixed and variable charges. So the 3.25% we showed in the first 2 years for both scenarios, they would just simply be applied equally to all classes, to all components of the charges. Here we just wanted to simply show you what that would mean for your rates. Again, it's just 3.25% for both years for all fixed charges on a monthly basis. Similarly, 3.25% for all energy charges for the current rate schedules. And then for those classes that do have a demand charge, the larger classes of service, they would have a 3.25% adjustment to the demand charges. Now, the last slide before we wrap things up is a survey, and I always caution when we're looking at these comparisons to treat them a little bit more with an apples and oranges comparison, because every utility is different, every power mix is different, every topography and service is different. But folks do like to see how they compare with their neighbors. In general, one item to note is that we are proposing a comparison of our rates with an increase with everybody else's rate today. We know that a lot of these utilities are going through similar studies and may have adjustments coming up as well. So it's a little bit of apples and oranges. In general, you're in the lower end of the comparison right now. And with the proposal, you would slightly move above Columbia River. But again, we don't really know what they're going to be doing with their rate action. And with that, that brings us to the end of the discussion. Really, we're looking for feedback from you, the council, regarding the scenarios. Again, they're very similar in the short term because of the pressures we're seeing from Bonneville, inflationary costs and capital costs. In the back end, that's why we're only focusing on the next 2 years, because we don't want to commit ourselves to a strategy, because we know there's a lot of uncertainty coming on from the new large loads. So we definitely recommend revisiting any strategy before any additional increases are done after the first 2 years, and we have a little bit more clarity regarding the new large loads. Now, the effective date for these increases is currently anticipated for October and would continue on that October cycle. Usually for electric systems, that's a good time to adjust rates, because there's no peak usage from either cooling or heating months that occur in the wintertime and peak cooling summer months. On the rate design front, we're not proposing any structural changes, just simply applying rates across the board. So with that, we'll hand it off to any questions.
Great. Thank you, Sergey. Questions from council? Council President Valenzuela.
Hello. Hey. Okay. Thank you so much for the presentation. And I am happy to see that, 3.25, given the circumstances that we have right now, it always hurts when you have an increase in rates. But as you said, it's lower, than other places. But my question is, I think I understood, I just want to be clear, for the years 28, 29, and 30 for S2, there's not a number. Is it because there's a possibility that it will continue 3.25 or?
No increase. I believe it's no increase.
It'd be 0%. It'd be zero, no increase.
Oh, okay. I understand. That was my question. Thank you.
Yeah, Keith, do you want to just restate that for the whole council? Like, just summarize that point.
Yeah, with the new large loads, there's two new large loads that are projected to come online in the next couple of years. The revenue that is generated by those should help us absorb any future rate increases past 2027, 2028. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with the new BPA contract in 2029. So that's still, it's still out there, but yeah, that's the expectation if everything comes online as expected.
Thank you. Any further questions from council? Councillor Schimmel.
I'm going to have to mention the two bloody words that the community wants to understand is the data center and this information or the increases relative to that specific project.
No, these increases are based on the rate increase from BPA that we're currently receiving and the capital projects of the substations and such. Those loads have not even started to come online yet. These were already projected for the last 9 months. These have been in the queue, these rate increases from BPA. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, just in terms of public communication on the increases and what they're attributed and not attributed to, I think is important.
Right. Yeah. So the projection is they will pay their full cost for all the power that the data centers use at the inflated rate, basically the tier 2 rate, the higher rate, and the revenue that is generated should actually help absorb future increases. Is the likelihood projected.
help the residential as
Help
well.
everybody.
That's
yes.
right. To paraphrase, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the reason that S2 would not have an increase in 28, 29, and 30 would be because of those large loads coming on.
That's correct. If they don't
So
come on,
so it actually decreases the prospective increase in residential rates.
if they do not come on, the projected is we will need to raise rates in 28, 29, and 30. Yes. With them on, the projection is we will not need to.
And my question, where I thought maybe Council President was going, the dashes for the no increase for residential rates on those 3 years, is it also possible that our projections could be wrong and that we might even be able to that there would be an even better, greater benefit of revenue that the new large loads would bring on? I'm wondering if we might study this again. I think the recommendation is to look at this again next year. And that we might even be able to realize further savings to residential customers sooner rather than later.
Yeah, you nailed exactly what we were thinking. We do want to go back to the well in about a year and look at it because everything is so active right now that we will be able to look and see. We'll also know what we're going to be seeing from BPA at that point too. So yeah, we definitely want to go back and start over again.
Okay.
Any further questions? Keith, do you have anything that you need from us?
I think we will plan on returning with this recommendation to council in the September 8th meeting, I believe. Is that correct, Jesse? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think, Mayor, we were looking for a consensus from the council about what you would like to do with light and power rates. So BPA rates becoming effective to us, we'll be paying those increased expenses effective October 1st. And so we normally go through this process in the fall. And so we'd like to see if there is a consensus to do a 1-year increase, a 2-year increase, how you want to proceed forward. But we are recommending 3.25%.
Traditionally, do we pass something each year for a rate increase, or do we?
We've done it both ways. We've done a rate increase for a 1-year period and then come back. We've done a 2-year rate period before. It kind of just depends on the stability of the numbers, the rate projections, et cetera. In this particular case, we know some of the information, which is that BPA is raising rates for every customer, regardless of what type of power, regardless of what type of customer, by 9.1% effective October 1st in the first year. So that's the one thing we know. The part that we don't know is the amount of power that we may be asked to provide in the second year. We do know in the first year, we know that the new large loads will not come online in 2026. I think 2027, correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, we don't know if they may come on in 2027, and if so, what time in 2027?
Yeah, we have a fairly good idea. The data center load is projected to come on around June of 2026. They'll start ramping up over a period of time. And then the second large load is projected for first quarter of 2027. So that's why we're not counting those large loads at all into this forecast, and why we're recommending the 3.25 and 3.25.
Okay.
Otherwise, our cash reserves will start dipping.
Yeah. So, is there consensus to do the 3.25 for both years? I'd say one. I'm saying 2 for 1 year, 2 for 2 years, 1 year. Okay, we'll do it with 1 year. I think there's consensus for that. Okay.
Just for further clarification, was there a consensus also to ask Surrey to do another rate study after the 3.25 implementation for the following year of for the following year of fiscal year 2027?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm seeing heads nod. Maybe not. Another rate study. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Sergey.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm going to adjourn this work session. I'm going to give it just a minute before we 602 or 601. The topic is Main Street Program. In attendance is our city council members, city staff Brian Pohl, Miles Glowacki, city manager Jesse Vanderzanden, and there are members in the audience watching. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our city manager, Jesse Vanderzanden.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Tonight's work session is scheduled for 1 hour, and we know that there's going to be discussion about this, so staff will endeavor to keep the presentation at 20 minutes or less, I promise. And so with that, if we could, and there's going to be, all three of us are going to be presenting. I'm going to cover the first portion through some background. I think Miles is going to cover some best practices, and then Brian is going to go into the OMS assessment and what some of the findings were. And when I use the term OMS, that's for Oregon Main Street. So next slide, please. Next slide. Really, the purpose of tonight's work session is to address some objectives and actions that are in the 2040 vision statement. The most principal one, 1.8, develop a long-term vision for the Main Street program. We've listed several other ones that are somewhat in alignment with this, or at least tangential to the Main Street program, but really tonight's purpose is to look at a long-term vision for the Main Street program. Next slide. So you can read what's up there. I'm not going to repeat it, but generally speaking, if you were to paraphrase what Main Street is a framework to try and do things in a certain area in downtown with partners and to implement programs and to implement infrastructure and to try and bring together some type of kind of collaborative and cohesive environment in which you can make improvements to your downtown. And it's a nationwide program. It's implemented here at the state by the Oregon State Parks. And there's a really kind of long-standing and kind of well-defined program of how to do the Main Street program. And so we're going to go through some of that tonight just to give you an idea of what the Main Street program looks like. But really, it's a framework. It's a framework for collaboration. Next slide. So as I mentioned, it operates under the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department. There are some tiers. I'll go over that just briefly in a moment. And if you'll go to the next slide, please. So these are the 4 tiers, and you'll see some of this history in a little bit later, but the connected community was actually, it starts with the local government, if you will, and once the local government gets kind of into the program, into the connected community, it passes off to a nonprofit. And in fact, it has to pass off to a nonprofit as you kind of mature through these various levels. In this particular case, the affiliated Main Street program is where we're at now. The City Club is a sponsoring entity for that program. And if you go to the next slide, these are some of the support and requirements that are part of the Main Street program that are correlated to those tiers. So if you look at the affiliated Main Street program, it's really kind of a focus on partnerships, developing those partnerships to make your program successful. It has the OMS site visit and recommendations. We're going to go over that tonight. You need to have an independent nonprofit in place within 2 years. That nonprofit is really centered on the Main Street program in downtown. And then you also have to have a budget and staff and plan within 3 years in place as well. The other ones are kind of different. If you go back to the other ones, you can see kind of as you mature, there's additional training opportunities, there's some additional grant opportunities, there's some additional staff time from the state. So it just, again, it kind of matures as the program begins to grow and begins to become solidified. Next slide. These are just some technical assistance that the state will offer depending on where you're at in that program that we just saw. So I don't need to go over those, but everywhere from strategic planning to staff time to visioning, etc. Next slide. So right now, one of the big kind of carrots, if you will, as part of the Main Street program is the state offers what's called a revitalization grant. And that revitalization grant is every year, it's a $400,000 grant that a community can receive for essentially downtown improvements. And it's very similar to the city's already existing URA building grant. There's a couple programmatic terms that are a little bit different. Matching requirement, for example, is different. The total funding amount is a little bit different. But fundamentally, it's for the same type of program, which is to improve downtown buildings, whether it's facades, whether it's historic buildings, et cetera. This was recently used in Cornelius, and it's regardless of tier. So you can do it all the way from when you first get in as a community, all the way to the fourth tier. Next slide, please. So a couple background slides, and I'm going to pass it to Miles. This has been going on at the city for quite some time. I also want to add that Main Street is a pretty popular program in a lot of Oregon cities. So it's not like it's a unique program that we just kind of looked at. It's a very popular program that's been in existence for a long time. But we presented to the council in 2019. The city actually applied in 2020. You remember there was a thing called COVID back then, and so it kind of didn't go very far during that time that there were virtual meetings and COVID was there. And then in 2022, the Downtown Task Force, it had a wide range of interests. It was a very collaborative process. They went through kind of what do we want to do with regard to the next step in the Main Street program, and they recommended to the Economic Development Commission to pursue the program, number one. So yes, we want to do a Main Street program. It's worth it. And then two, we do want to have a nonprofit be the entity that moves this program forward. In other words, we're through the kind of community level, and we're now on to the affiliated level, and we want to move this program forward. So next slide. In 2023, the Chamber requested the city support their application to become an affiliated Main Street member. They had actually kind of gone through the process. They had put together a preliminary application. This led to some discussions between the City Club and the Chamber on an MOU outlining how Oregon Main Street would be governed. The Chamber agreed not to apply, and the City Club did apply as an affiliated Main Street member. The City Council provided a letter of support for the City Club's application. You'll notice in that letter it provided the City Club collaborate with the Chamber on implementing the Oregon Main Street program. So it kind of envisioned an initial framework of the city and the Chamber and the City Club really working together toward the governance of the Main Street program. In 2024, the City Club was accepted as an affiliated Main Street member by the Oregon Main Street program. And when I say accepted, that means they were accepted by essentially Oregon State Parks, the administrative arm of the Oregon Main Street program. And then in 2025, the OMS office completed the Main Street assessment, and that comes with the program. So when you're an affiliated member, after you've been an affiliated member for a year, the state comes up and they do an assessment. Next slide. Briefly, these are programs that the city already offers. Some of these are very similar to a Main Street program. Some of these have a kind of a focus on the same goals and objectives of a Main Street program. I don't need to go through all of those, but really those are all programs that are centered on trying to improve either programs, infrastructure, et cetera, in that downtown area. Next slide. So with that, if there's any questions about the background or any questions about Main Street so far, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I would have Miles start talking about best practices. So.
Any questions?
Okay.
Seeing none, go ahead, Miles.
So this is the best practices for both the city partner and for the nonprofit organization. Start with the city. So financial support can look like direct funding to the Main Street program for their budget. It can look like matching grants for financial assistance, for building improvement programs, facades, or business development. And it can also look like in-kind support, staff time, use of city-owned equipment. Next slide, please. Administrative and logistical support, assigning a staff liaison to work with the Main Street program and hours to go with that. Permitting assistance, streamlining the process for events, and ensuring what data the city does possess with the entity. Next slide, please. Infrastructure and public space improvements. So streetscape improvements, lighting, sidewalks, benches, that type of thing. Public safety measures, if called for, increased police presence, improved lighting and maintenance, and then parking solutions, investing in adequate parking facilities or shared use agreements. Next slide, please. Under planning and policy support, really working at the city code level to implement policies that support mixed use in the area. Incentive programs, things like tax abatements, low interest loans for improvements to the area. And then master planning, so thinking about the Main Street initiatives and the broader city plans. Next slide, please. Promotion and community engagement, partnering on events, offering marketing support with the city's marketing arm for events and promotions, and then community engagement, getting out there, encouraging residents to participate on the downtown initiatives. And then advocacy and leadership, showing political support both at the local level and at the state level, and then public-private partnerships. So building those relationships between the government, the private entities and developers to bring about projects and programs. So these are the best practices for the Main Street organization. And just like the city, a lot of these best practices are already underway or in process. So establish a dedicated organization, form a nonprofit entity solely focused on downtown. Board development, it's recruit and develop and train a diverse board of directors that represents the community stakeholders, so business owners, property owners, residents, and visitors. And it should be representative of the kind of broader community. And then staffing, hire or appoint a Main Street manager or coordinator. This is under the 4-point approach. So under organization, promotion, and design, economic vitality, it correlates to the Main Street approach. And next slide, please. And then there's community engagement and volunteer management. Volunteer recruitment looks like engaging volunteers, training them, recognizing them, and retaining them to really implement a successful program. And then under public relations, maintaining open communication, not with just the community members, but also with stakeholders and partners, so that it's transparent and everybody knows what's going on and can work together for the collective good. Next. A big portion of the job is fundraising to implement the programs. There's lots of ways to do that, and I'll talk a little bit about how Main Street programs fund themselves. And then financial oversight is maintaining all the budgets and books, not just up to nonprofit standards, but there's also reporting back to the state. Next slide, please. And here's the reporting to the state, and then comply with all state laws and training requirements, workshops. Another big part of the job is advocating for the interests of downtown for policies both at the local level and at the state level, and building those partnerships and those relationships so that you can further your goals at those levels. So this is a funding model that Medford utilizes, their downtown district. And there's all kinds of different models from across the country. I just wanted to show you one that I could find that offered a glimpse to how they're funded in the area. And what it shows is a mix. There's a mix of funding. There's no one funding stream that covers everything. And I'll pass it over to Brian to talk about the assessment. If there's any questions on best practices.
I had a quick question. On the last Medford's budget, do you know the total budget? 'Cause those are like, that's a percentage, right? But to me, it doesn't. I need an anchor. Okay, thank you.
Let's turn our attention to the Main Street assessment. The purpose of the assessment is to educate, identify opportunities for barriers, strengthen local partnerships, and enhance community passion for programs. But really, I mean, it's to give a framework for success for Main Street. Next slide, please. So as alluded to before, on March 3rd and 4th of 2025, OMS staff and a consultant conducted a site visit of the City Club's Main Street program. OMS held a series of work sessions and a large community workshop with over 80 attendees. OMS also met with City Club leadership and reviewed City Club's survey of residents and business owners. In that process, there were over 300 responses. Next slide, please. The recommendations kind of centered on the board makeup as well as the 4 pillars of Main Street. The design, economic vitality, promotions, and outreach and organization. Staff did obtain a report from the state, and it has been attached to the packet tonight for your reading pleasure. Next slide, please. With respect to the board, the following were the recommendations from the Oregon Main Street program. Consider changing City Club's name to reflect its pivot from its traditional programming to the Main Street model. Structure the committees around the 4 points or the 4 pillars. Leadership should be representative of the local community. Eliminate actual and perceived conflicts of interest so that the program can focus solely on downtown services. and do not require anyone to sign non-disclosure agreement. Next slide, please. As far as design, the ideas were to reduce barriers to local and building improvement projects, maintain historic building integrity, build relationships with property owners, placemaking, and cleanup days and public art installation. Next slide, please. Economic vitality, the ideas were to promote vacant storefronts, activate vacant buildings through temporary installations and pop-up stores, offer business support, and perform a market analysis to identify service gaps in the downtown core. Next slide, please. Promotions. It was noted that the City Club already has a great calendar of events, a robust number of events happening. That those events should be a win-win for local businesses. They should benefit local businesses as well as the event themselves. Develop event themes and programs that are authentic to the culture and history of Forest Grove. Create programs that encourage exploring downtown. And create a downtown identity. Next slide, please. Under the pillar of outreach and organization, clarify roles and responsibilities, communicate with partners, develop partner agreements, develop a community calendar, fully participate in the Main Street network, be the boots on the ground doing the sort of downtown outreach, volunteer management, and to improve the diversity outreach or to reach more diverse people. So that's a big, busy slide. Basically what it says is the conclusion is that there's a great deal of momentum behind a downtown revitalization effort. The partnerships need to be identified, solidified, and nourished. And internally, the City Club has work to do in terms of organizational management. Next slide, please. So as far as discussion, Mayor, I don't know how you want to take this, but we came with a list of questions and discussion points for the council to have. But I will yield there, allow the mayor to take over.
Yeah, go ahead, Miles.
The answer to your question, 2023, it was 96,000.
So 96,000 for Medford.
So about 100,000, so 37,000.
So about 37 from the city. Okay, great. Thank you. Quick work there. Okay, I think so these points are discussion, like starters. I think we could leave this discussion slide up, and then we should go around, and each counselor should address the things that they would like to address relevant to these questions or to the assessment or to downtown. Does that work for you all? Okay. Would someone like to go first? Crickets. Okay, do you have a question?
I do
Oh
have a
yeah, there's
question.
questions first.
Yeah, I have a question. Miles, I think there was a really good sort of rundown of what a lot of the city is already doing and had a whole lot of numbers. I added it up. It was almost $500,000 a year plus some one time. And the one thing that I didn't see was, I don't know if we're tracking, I know you're the city liaison, is that correct, for the Oregon Main Street, for the City Club, for our Main Street program?
I am.
And do you track your time? I didn't see that.
I have not.
Okay. And then I also saw waivers of fees related to permits, and I wondered if we also had tracked that information.
So Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there hasn't been a Main Street project yet. And so some of those things just haven't been activated. I think that's really kind of a programmatic approach that once the Main Street program gets going, one of the benefits the city could do is look at expedited processes, maybe different fees associated with a $400,000 grant, those types of things. So we just haven't got to that point, Councilor Falconer. So.
I guess I'm a little confused then, because I thought that I saw in some of the public comments from the City Club was sort of it suggested that there were a number of events that were being done by the City Club for the Main Street program. It referred to several of them, and I think your slide referred to waiving permit fees for events. And so I guess I thought maybe there had already been some events. Like, I mean, it mentioned, several events that the community is very familiar with and that are popular. And I wasn't, Oktoberfest being one of them. Was there a permit fee waived for that?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Thank you. So then I think the only thing that I'm not sure then maybe is tracking Miles' time for for City Club activities related to Main Street program.
Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, and just to kind of clarify, a lot of those things that were listed were best practices of a city, not necessarily the things that the city of Forest Grove was doing. We were doing some of those, and we could go into much more detail on that if you would like, but those were just best practices that the Oregon Main Street program was recommending cities do.
Okay. Any additional questions for staff? Okay, are you ready for, go ahead, Councilor Schimmel. Okay, go ahead, Councilor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So those best practices, as you say, they were just a list of things. Do we know which ones are we going to be adopting?
Good question, Councilor Valenzuela. I think there are some that we are already doing. A lot of what the city does or doesn't do is really kind of based on the status of the Main Street program itself and how far it's matured and what programs are in place and if there's been applications, if there hasn't, if there's been events, those types of things. And so I think it's pretty safe to say part of the intent of this work session is to kind of figure out, potentially some of those things. But I think the city is open to any and all of those things. It just really depends on kind of where the program is at, how far it is in its maturation process, what activities it's doing, what the board wants to do, those types of things.
So, because Miles is the liaison, he's working, but one of the best practices, I believe, was to hire someone to do specifically that kind of work.
To hire somebody for the nonprofit.
Oh, okay, linked to the nonprofit. Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, I guess just, oh, sorry, you were next. Go ahead, Councilor Schimmel.
Yeah, I'll just really piggyback on the previous question about the best practices, and because for the city, are these practices consistent with what you would do with the 2040 plan? That's part A. Yeah, the best practices in your presentation regarding the city, are those practices you would employ with regard to the 2040 plan?
Well, I think that so often the 2040 process, because I guess I would say I was involved from the very beginning of the 2040 process. There was so much overlap coming out of those things. And so it wasn't, in the 2040 process, it wasn't, Main Street should be doing this, or this. It was sort of maybe a little more general, sort of downtown revitalization, things like that. And so many of these things kind of overlapped one another. And so the answer to your question, I think, is obviously yes. There's a lot of things in 2040 that kind of touched on some of these things. And a lot of things in 2040 we were already doing. As well as you've seen on the list up here, a lot of these things in Main Street we're already doing. Building improvement grant, things like that, part of our sort of quiver.
So then part B to that question is regarding best practices for the Main Street organization it's been 18 months, I believe. What is, I don't know if Miles, what your participation or staff in general, what's your assessment of their activation or execution of those best practices?
Yeah, I think the state assessment really speaks to areas that need attention and areas for improvement and growth. This is my first experience with the Main Street program, so I can't really judge them against what I don't know other Main Street programs doing. But I think the assessment's a good starting point.
Yeah, I would echo what Miles was saying. I think part of the reason for the OMS assessment is under the affiliated membership. Once the Main Street program transfers kind of from the city to a nonprofit, and again, that's required as part of that program. But once that happens, there is this kind of 1-year assessment, and the state does that assessment, and they interview all kinds of collaborators and partners, et cetera, that are involved in that process. And so I would echo, I think kind of the focus there is part of the reason why we put the findings and the actual assessment in the packet itself for you to take a look at. Those are really where the state said that, kind of, this is a framework program. These are areas that we believe need improvement and that we want addressed. But again, it's just it's an assessment, right? So I hope that answers your question, Councilor.
Okay, so I think I'm going to move on to like maybe the assessment or the vision. So my understanding, and kind of in reflection to some of the other comments or questions, is that oftentimes in city government, there is, like Brian was saying, overlapping, right? Like we have our URA building improvement grants, that's to help our downtown economy. That's also a thread in the design approach for Oregon Main Street. So the Oregon Main Street is, my understanding is like to facilitate collaboration, cooperation, to bring partners together. When I read the assessment, there was some best practices and recommendations that I personally agree with, that I've had some trouble with, mainly, the organizational structure, the representation of the board, the conflict of interest, whether it's perceived or actual. The recommendation, I think, states, I'm just going to read it. It says, while not prohibited, it is discouraged for a variety of reasons. It can create confusion when the Main Street board member is talking with city staff as a partner, because it is much more difficult for city staff to determine if they are talking with the Main Street board member or the city council member. It is also more challenging when Main Street program is pursuing city funding, and even though no actual personal financial gain exists, there still is a perceived conflict of interest. So that to me is like, I agree with, that's been kind of difficult to navigate as the mayor. I also have concerns, so I'm going to bring the perspective that at the budget meeting in May, I was asked that the city fund the Main Street program, and currently there's a non-disclosure agreement from my understanding of this assessment, and I don't feel comfortable giving public dollars to an organization that's not transparent. And then I guess, also the representation of the board and the name could be changed. But I guess what I want to go with is that then I think attached to this presentation was my understanding the City Club board responded to these recommendations. And it was my perception from reading the document that they were not willing to do anything about those recommendations. So I can't support funding the nonprofit Main Street or City Club without those things being addressed. However, I still believe in our 2040 plan. I still believe in supporting downtown. The city has given money. There's also many different opportunities for us to continue figuring out how to help, whether in kind or financially. But where I personally am right now is based on the assessment and then the response to the assessment. I, in good faith as a public elected, cannot use public dollars to support an organization that's not going to do those things. Anyone else? I'm saying two had not. Okay. Any other comments? I have four. Can I just get I have some people nodding their head with my comments, but I want to make sure. There's a hand raised. Councilor Gustafson.
Hey everybody, I just wanted to comment based on the Main Street program. The assessment, which is done for all Main Street programs that are coming in about the 1 year time, is meant to be done after whoever's, whatever group is coming together, whether it's a new nonprofit or a current nonprofit, once they've had some time to research and learn about the program. And it's really meant to be a snapshot in time to get, gotta lower my hand before I forget, to get that baseline of where that organization is, so that they know how to get to where they're going. So a lot of those things are just discoveries that organizations have when they do speak to their Main Street coordinators at their state level. The assessment was obviously very well received. Sherry and her team did a great job. There was a response from the City Club Board, of which, yes, I am the president, so that's just making that transparent. But as a counselor, I also have that knowledge that all of us use, that knowledge of whatever things that we're involved in. But the response of that assessment, I guess I'm a little bit confused, Mayor, on your comments, only because this is a work in progress, right? Those partners, all the partners have inclusion in those decisions. The partners are what make up a board, right? And that's the team that makes those decisions. So the city being one of those team members, we started a partnership they have with Adelante Mujeres, Pacific University. There's a variety of board members who are participating. And so when you're saying that there's not broad diversity in that, we've got the three organizations, business and business owners, involved in making those decisions. So I'm not really sure about that. And as far as transparency, I do know that the organization is looking into the conflict of interest form, which designates kind of what to do when there's a conflict of interest, how to handle that within the system, and also baking into that something that explains that when these partners are together, there is sensitive information there, and there is information that we're all building together as partners for the betterment of the Main Street program and therefore the city of Forest Grove. If one of those partners goes off on their own and takes that information and injects it before the partnership hub has a chance to do that, that can really disable the benefit of a Main Street program. So that is why that NDA was put into place to begin with. Everybody signed it. In fact, I believe the city also signed it. But that is up for discussion because of the assessment. So when we're talking about, as a council, investing in the Main Street program, I don't think that the purpose of that assessment was to take that snapshot of where they are now and decide whether you're going to support that or not. Being the city of Forest Grove, it is our responsibility to support the Main Street program in whatever way that we determine is going to be the best benefit for the downtown and the city of Forest Grove, which you've seen the kind of what Medford does. And there's information out there regarding that with other cities as well. So I guess I would look a little deeper into the responses, just because there's a lot of information in there that says what the program is going to look into to add to the strategic plan, what areas they're going to think, how do we navigate this? Things that were already in progress of changes and changes that had been made before this assessment came out. So I guess it's disheartening to see that the city council is basing their support of an organization of which they are the partner. And so therefore, if we don't support that, we are saying that we're not supporting ourselves as a council because we are already a partner in that organization.
Thank you, Councilor Gustafson. I'm going to allow city staff to respond about the signing of a non-disclosure, and then Councilor Falconer.
I haven't signed a non-disclosure agreement, and the Chamber of Commerce also wouldn't sign one either.
Okay, then that's my mistake. Miles, I thought you had signed one.
Whoops, I kept pressing the silent button, sorry. Just to clarify, it's my understanding that no one from the city, in addition to Miles, has signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Counselor Gustafson, can I ask you a question? I'm not sure I know who. I think part of the confusion that I was reading, in the assessment, and my ongoing confusion is I don't know who the board is. And you've referred to a partnership, a partner hub, and partners, and you've referred to organizations as partners, but then you've sort of interchangeably referred to them as the board. And I think it's really important to have that clarity about, there's supposed to be a board for the organization, the sponsor, the nonprofit that is the Main Street program. And I don't know who that board is. And it doesn't sound like, to me, like Miles is a member of the board. And I don't know but that's the only person that I know of who's participated in this hub. And so I think that would be helpful for me to understand.
I
Sure.
participate on the Main Street Committee, and that is not my understanding. That is not the same as the City Club Board, and I don't vote on that committee. I'm just a partner on that committee.
Okay. Counselor, are you able to tell us who the
Yeah.
Main Street program board, who the board members are?
Sure. And just a little bit of quick history. Initially, when the program started, it was the current board's decision, and they made a resolution to start a committee just so we could jumpstart it and get it going without all the ins and outs of creating a new board and trying to figure that out. And so that committee did include our partners, so Adelantes and Pacific in the city, as well as business owners and building owners. But when the term partner is used, that is used in a way to ensure people understand that is who they are. We are all partners. As far as who the board is Jody and Adelante Mujeres, Sarah at Pacific University, Miles is a part of that. These were all decisions that were made, Miles, I think possibly at a meeting that you weren't able to attend. But the board was all voted in, and the Main Street Committee is now not a committee anymore, right? Everybody is in the same board of directors. So those partners, that is the board of directors. That is the only board of directors in the City Club.
So to clarify, there's a board member from Adelante, a board member from Pacific, and then Miles from the city, and that makes up the board?
No, there's also building owners and business owners.
Okay, who?
Oh, sure. Nicole Ellis, Jordan Miller, Kelly Daly, Heather Rhodes, Lisa, oh my gosh, her name is just escaping me, who's a resident. So we also have two residents. One particularly lives in the area. And we don't have a building owner at this time, but there's a position there if we can identify one.
And I think, that's what... And I don't think that Miles can be on the board. He can be a liaison for communication, but I think that that's another part of the assessment was the organizational structure, and kind of going back to some of the basis for my comments. The assessment said, since being accepted as an affiliated member, there's been some confusion both internally and externally about who the Main Street organization in Forest Grove is. Several community stakeholders and City Club leadership to dispel the confusion. However, the confusion stems from having a Main Street subcommittee working on integrating the Main Street structure into the City Club function. Anyway, so I think that also is part of the recommendation, is to really have a representative board. I think, and then the recommendations actually says, sorry, I highlighted a lot of stuff and underline it, is uncommon and not, oops, that's a different one. I think that's, anyways, I lost that highlighted page, but yeah, go ahead, Councilor Gustafson.
So again, that assessment is not meant to be a grade to determine if we as a city want to support the Main Street program. It is a baseline. It's to bring to light what the assessment is as far as what the Oregon Main Street program sees, and based on feedback from different people in the community. And keeping in mind that those different people in the community may not know that some of that stuff is already in the works. So as a Main Street program, they're not expected to start and be all ready and prepared in the first year, year and a half, or 3 years. This is not a sprint. It's a marathon, which is something that Sherry baked right into her report. And there can't be proper progression in any organization like this without proper support. And right now, the city is a very inactive partner. And that's kind of what this assessment was supposed to help with, is get that baseline. And then the city, us as a city, can decide, okay, how are we going to support this? Where does everything fit in together? And start that conversation, which has been started because the City Club did give Miles and Brian just a first draft of what that master operating agreement could look like, for them to start writing through, say, no, we can't do this, don't even bother, or yeah, we like this, how about this also? That conversation has started. So it is concerning to me that after supporting moving forward to the Main Street program, that what's being in question is how good the organization already is, right? They've just started the program, and it sounds like the expectation is they have everything in line. This report was to demonstrate where recommendations and where opportunities are, not to decide not to support them. I don't accept that.
Thank you, Counselor. First of all, I really appreciate the effort of City Club for wanting to take on and add to downtown and explore Main Street program. And I just want to push back a little bit that, where the direction I thought the Main Street program / City Club wanted the council to go is to determine funding, right? Like, you came to the budget committee in May, asked for some funding. We had this assessment. The assessment gave some recommendations. My concern is if Main Street program thinks the next step for the city supporting just the Main Street program, and I want to kind of do a little sideline tangent. The city supports downtown. The city supports downtown businesses. We have grants, we have building improvement grants, we have event grants, we have sponsorship grants. We are doing over $400,000 glow up, installing lighting and electricity. I mean, we are doing things which are all key components of the Main Street program. 2 years ago, we said, hey, another layer that has been affected for some cities is to add a nonprofit Main Street affiliate to help kind of bring the secret sauce of the chamber, the city, the business owners, and elevate the downtown. My concerns with moving forward in a financial avenue with Main Street / City Club is that there were recommendations to help be transparent, to help collaboration, cooperation, representation. And what I read in blue was that City Club was not willing to do those things. And so for me, at this point, I'm not willing to give public dollars. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm done with City Club. I'm saying work out the kinks, figure out the conflict of interest, build a board, maybe change the name, get your game plan for the 4 pillars, and then come back. But where it is right now, I can't, there's other ways we can help. I mean, maybe there's in kind. We'll still probably give some grant sponsorships for events, but in terms of saying, hey, we're going to give City Club this much money for rent or executive director salary or whatever, I'm not there. Councillor Schimmel.
Yeah, I'll concur with the mayor, and nothing that Councillor Gustafson has said has changed my mind about it. In fact, at this point, I can't delineate between counselor and president of the city club, which explains the conflict of interest, and that seems like city club's been given a discrete position in this work session that doesn't typically allow that to happen without consensus. So we're basically getting public comment from an independent institution. That's, to me, that's out of order, and I will just say that publicly. Jesse mentioned in the presentation about Cornelius as an example. They're at a connected community level. They've had 2 consecutive state grants, cumulative to about $500,000. That's without any money from the city to any nonprofit for those. In the last one, they've contributed URA money to a project for a match. So to me, Cornelius is a great example of nonprofit and city collaborating that doesn't require the city to fund the nonprofit's budget. So I found it unfortunate that there wasn't an application this past cycle, which could have amounted to about a $500,000 project. That demonstrates the lack of capacity for the local institution to raise other money for its cause, and there's still a great amount of confusion between City Club and Main Street, and I see City Club going after other extended projects like fireworks. So I don't know that even with limited capacity and going after other things that we can count on this happening. So that's where I am currently.
Yeah, and I just want to address that. I really struggled with, there's no public comment to be taken during a work session, and it was really challenging for me to understand what to really do if basically I have to make a decision if I should ask a counselor not to speak, because I think it's public comment, when really I think the ethics asks the counselor to recuse themselves if there is a conflict. So I did struggle with that in the days prior to this work session, not really knowing how to address that. Councillor Gustafson.
Just a few things. So the City Club did apply, by the way. So just so you have that knowledge. The name change is in progress. The 5013 development is in progress and has been for quite some time. Those things take time. But as far as ethics, it has been determined over and over, and I feel like I should just record this, that it is no breach of ethics. So if I'm going to be held to a different standard than anyone that's on council speaking to anything where they are employed, where they volunteer, where they're on the board, where they have any sort of influence, whether it's the chamber, the Rotary, it doesn't matter. All of you use that information that you have because of your life experiences to move forward. And I'd like to remind council that in the past, we have had counselors actually voting on finances for organizations to which they have a familial connection to, as well as a previous mayor voting for funds to go to an organization of which they were on the board. This is a new problem. So if I'm going to be held to a higher standard than the rest, present and past, that is a problem of the council. And as far as the support of the City Club is the Main Street program. We've also said that several times, and Sherry has also explained that. If we want the Main Street program within the City Club to be successful, we contribute. And in all cities all around, and you will hear this, the more support the program has from the city, the more successful it is, and the more the downtown flourishes. That is a direct correlation. So it sounds like that there's a lot of confusion based on what you read. I think that there's a way to clear all that up in the future. But again, we're at the beginnings, and the city being an active partner is paramount to a successful Main Street program, no matter who runs it.
Okay, I think for sake of time, we have about 8 minutes left. We should move on to the third bullet. I mean, unless I don't want to stifle anyone. Did anyone have any additional comments about the assessment? Okay, so the third bullet point is, what is the city's vision for the Oregon Main Street program? Levels of participation, level and type of city assistance, objectives, expectations, if assistance is provided. I've kind of said my piece, so. Go ahead.
Well, I think this has considerable implications on what this council has adopted. So I would really be really disappointed not to hear from every counselor on this subject. My estimation, we've adopted a 2040 plan, and as in my study of the Main Street program, it's effectively one and the same, and then some. And the city has already been doing a considerable amount of effort. We're funding a considerable amount of money. And the obstacle that I've witnessed for the past 6 months as I've interfaced with business and property owners, with organizations, is the polarization among agencies and the poor experience that people have interfacing with the Main Street program as it is today. People have left that board because of actions taken unilaterally. I've heard from property and business owners who abandon the effort because of what they experience. I've heard of events held by the city club that businesses not only don't benefit from, but end up being more harm than good. So I don't normally want to weigh in on an organization, but an organization is asking for me to approve money. And I see real harm being done in our community with our partnerships that the city depends on. And I've had it. So I frankly want to put a stop to this so that we can restore partnerships and move forward. And it is my responsibility as counselor to revitalize our downtown. I am not responsible for a state program. What we've adopted and what we're implementing effectively implements that program by default. I can easily make those relationships clear and present.
Councilor Marshall.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out we keep saying revitalize our downtown. Is our downtown that bad that we need to revitalize it? My business is thriving. Number of businesses up there are thriving. Some of the businesses that leave, sometimes hobbies don't turn into a business. So sometimes those hobbies don't pan out. So we're going to keep putting funding into these things to make them better and stay longer when they aren't viable to stay on their own. The businesses I've talked to have had or support the Main Street project and support the city club. So I get conflicting information from, I'd like to sit down maybe with you and figure out who you're talking to and who I'm talking to and see where the conflict is. Do I think that they can run it? Yeah. Do I think another organization can run it? Yes. It's not rocket science to help a downtown area. I just feel like when we keep pushing this, like we got to do this downtown, there's a lot of other places in the city that need to be boosted up. The downtown's doing great. I just don't see this. I get the focus on downtown and keeping it like historical looking, keeping it vibrant. What's not vibrant about it? Like, that's my question with this. We keep wanting to push all these things, all this agenda on this, but what are we pushing it for? Like, what? I've seen the Safeway parking lot. I've seen those businesses that it kind of looks you have to get through some parts of town that don't look as great to get to this side of town that looks great. But we're focusing on the side that looks great. Maybe that's just my opinion as a business owner up here. I don't think we're doing horrible.
Thank you. So I'm hearing, like, for me, I'm not comfortable participating in this model. And I heard that from Councilor Schimmel and Councilor Marshall. So anyone else want to weigh in? Oh, sorry, Councilor Marshall again.
I just guess what my question is I've heard a lot of, there's an issue with this. What is the solution going to be? Like, we keep saying that this isn't going to work. What's the solution? Like, what are we doing with this? Like,
Well, I mean, for me right now, I think you just brought up a good point. And then looking at the city's best practices and looking at our 2040 plan, you can say that the city of Forest Grove is financially investing in the downtown in a number of ways. So do we need to move forward with Oregon Main Street? Do we need to move forward and put in additional revenue for that program? Like, that's, I mean, sorry, but that's kind of what I just heard you say, to paraphrase. And I heard Councilor Schimmel say that, and we saw it on the screen.
I would say that what they're doing and what their mission is it going to help? It can spruce it up and make it look good, and they can have the events. But what are we, like, are you trying to decipher the two? Is it Main Street? Is it City Club? Or are we trying to just say no to it? Like, what do you, as a council, I mean...
My understanding, the point of this work session, and staff and council can help me out, is that it was like, what are we doing? Are we going to move forward with Main Street? And what we're hearing from the Main Street organization is, in order for them to move forward, they need funding from the city. Right? And then...
But you also said if they were to get everything in line and come back to the city.
I didn't say that.
I thought you said your 4 pillars, you get your 4 pillars in line, that you would come
Right
back
now,
to
I
us.
said, but maybe. But
No, I mean, and so are we saying that, like, reevaluate this in the future
Well,
after they get some, like I'm
listening-
just trying to figure out what.
No, because I'm like listening to you and listening to us. Like, we just now got the 2040 plan starting to implement a month ago. We had already built these things out within the URA. I don't know if we need to. I mean, to be honest, like, for me, when you live off a levy and we have limited revenue, I want to make sure that we have a product. I want to make sure that it goes directly, that there's not a middle. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It was a little bit hard for me to swallow. Like, hey, give us funding so we can rent an office space because we need this to be Oregon Main Street, and then we need to pay an executive director, when we could continue to put it into building improvement grants or operational maintenance of cleaning up downtown, right? Or these other things. So what I'm saying is, right now, like, the fact that, yes, we went down this road, but then there's some things that I'm not comfortable giving money to. A, right, public dollars, but then B, we do have these other structures in place. And so is it a good use of resources? So where I'm at right now is I would probably not participate. Councilor Schimmel.
I would summarize with, we implement the 2040 vision plan as planned. And if we really need to shore up Miles and his responsibilities, or his support, the support for his efforts. And I guess, that shouldn't, I'm sorry, that's not exclusive to Miles, but implementing it through our respective boards and commissions and other departments as the city manager sees fit. But I mean, we're already intending on implementing the 2040 plan. The 2040 plan reflects all the key tenets of the Main Street program. So we do that for the next year, and then in a year, City Club can come back with a project or something of that nature to present a proposition. But otherwise, I concur with the mayor.
Councilor Martinez, do you want to speak after?
So, and I concur with Councilor Marshall. I think maybe we need to focus on areas outside of downtown. We've put so much into downtown, and there's so much more to our city. than downtown. And there are businesses outside of downtown that should get some attraction as well, some improvements to our city in general.
I was just going to say, I mean, it sounds to me like you have the answers to your question, that you have
I actually-
consensus. There isn't
I am
consensus to
I
move
am
forward with
in
another
support
level.
of Main Street project. I am just saying that it doesn't need to focus on downtown. I'm saying, is it just supposed to specifically focus on the downtown area?
Yeah, that's
And
the
that's
whole
what I'm
point.
trying to see, if
That's-
there's a way to get it outside
No,
of
that's
this
the
area.
state program is just that. That's the deal. We are butting against a time, so I'm going to let Councilor Guston speak, but it's 7:02, so we're a little bit over. But we do have
Sure,
consent. Go ahead, Councilor Guston.
I'll make it quick. I think it's important to know, but so it sounds like the council, some of the council are not in favor of moving forward with support of maybe any kind at this point. But as far as how it can benefit based on, what we're already doing as a city, Miles and Sherry have explained that many times. So I'm not sure where that's getting lost, but I think it is important to consider that there is a huge benefit to this, and just walking away from it after a year's time without even considering any sort of support is basically just unsupportive. And Mike, Councilor Marshall, to your question, the Main Street program, like they said, is specific to the downtown just because that's how it was built. And which has been discussed many times again by Miles and by our Main Street program coordinator, that healthy downtown in the other cities has proven to lift up the other sections of the city. So all of that is associated with that heart of the city. That's just something else to understand. But it's unfortunate that we're in this position now where we've had an organization working very hard, and they're going to continue, I'm sure, to work very hard. But unfortunately, it will be without active partnership from the city.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, we're going to adjourn this work session, and I'm going to give you a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene. Reading this thing from Paul.
No one has said anything about Paul. No one has said anything about Paul.
We didn't have time to eat it all, so I'm going to kind of eat right now. I was like, I did not feel like doing anything today food-wise, so I just bought a Caesar salad.
I'm going to get him. Mariah, sorry. Hello, friends. Oh, I'm not on yet. Good evening. Is my mic on, Mariah? Okay, great. Thank you, Mariah. Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Forest Grove City Council meeting. The date is August 25th, 2025. I would like to begin tonight's meeting by honoring the life of Assistant City Manager Paul Deoni. It is my deep privilege to speak on behalf of a grateful city, as we remember someone who was not only a dedicated public servant, but also a true friend to this community. Paul gave 25 years of his life in service to Forest Grove. As our Assistant City Manager and Finance Director, his impact was felt in every corner of city government. He worked side by side with every department, bringing not just his sharp financial mind, but his kindness. his collaboration, and his unwavering belief in what local government could do for its people. Paul played a key role in guiding the city through major capital improvement projects, ensuring they were not only completed, but successful and sustainable. Thanks to his leadership and foresight, we now have the infrastructure and the stability to serve generations to come. He was also instrumental in passing multiple city levies, efforts that required not just technical skill, but the trust of a community. That trust was earned year after year by Paul's transparency, diligence, and his clear passion for keeping Forest Grove strong. But beyond the titles and accomplishments, Paul was a champion for this city in the truest sense. He believed in Forest Grove. He believed in the people who call it home. To the city staff, he was more than a colleague. He was a friend, a mentor, and a steady presence. Paul's legacy is written not just in budgets and buildings, but in the hearts of those he worked with and in the community he helped shape. Forest Grove is better because he was a part of it. On behalf of the city of Forest Grove, we extend our deepest gratitude to Paul Downey and our heartfelt condolences to his family, friends, and all who had the honor of knowing him. May we carry forward his spirit of service, his commitment to the community, and his love for this city. Thank you. Mariah, will you please? Thank you. Thank you, Paul. And I tried to wear orange today, but I just couldn't do it. So this is Forest Grove green, not Oregon green. Mariah, will you please call roll?
Counselor Gustafson?
You're on mute.
Here, sorry.
Council President Valenzuela?
Here.
Counselor Schimmel?
Here.
Counselor Falconer?
Here.
Counselor Martinez? Here. Counselor Marshall?
Here.
Mayor Wenzel?
Here. Forest Grove City Council meetings are located on the land of the Tualatin Kalapuas, who call themselves the Apalati. They are now part of the Confederate tribes of Grand Ronde. Will the council and the audience please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item B on our agenda. Public comment, time provided for anyone wishing to speak to the City Council on an item not on the agenda or on the agenda but not scheduled for a public hearing. Comments are limited to 2 minutes unless additional time is granted by the presiding officer. The public comment period shall not exceed 30 minutes unless a majority of councilors present vote to extend the time. Zoom attendees, please or may use the raise hand option to be called on. Okay, let's start with our first public comment. He's gearing up in the queue, Mr. Dale Feek. Hello, Mr. Feek.
Mayor Wenzel, Council President Valenzuela.
Valenzuela.
Yeah, thank you. And councilors, I'm Dale Feek. Moved to Forest Grove in 1966 to be a fifth grade teacher. I gave to you through Mariah handout. And what that handout is, Mike Rogaway, who knows a lot about data centers in Oregon, wrote this front page article called "It Blocks Out the Sky, Data Centers, Big Plans, Rile Small Town Neighbors in Forest Grove." So what you're getting now is that handout, is that paper in the paper. So I have a minute and 21 seconds. As most of you know, I appealed the Creighton Data Center to Planning Commission and to you. And some of you made the comments that you wish the codes had changed because you couldn't address height couldn't address noise well, you couldn't address a lot of things. So Rogaway interviewed some of you, quoted you in that article, and said, please change your codes, okay, so that you can not feel regret and if something happens like that again. Another reason to do that, though, is Crane Data Centers says they may not even build that 7-story building. They may not do that. They say that, but then they say they might do it. It'd be helpful if you change the codes, put a little pressure on them to not do that if you change your codes now. Even though there may not be, but there could be another data center application for land use in Forest Grove. And also, construction boots up on First Data Center in Forest Grove. If you haven't taken the News Times, please read that too. I would be remiss if I didn't say Trump's regime. You know, I gave most of you the book on tyranny, right? It's not an administration. It's a regime. It's a fascist. And I wonder if he's now hiring some of the people he pardoned to be ICE agents. He pardoned all those people. I wouldn't doubt it.
Thank you, Mr. Feig. Our next public comment is Mr. Michael Pearl.
Mayor Wenzel, City Council members, Michael Peralt, 3254 Ridge Point Drive, Forest Grove. I am a member of the American Legion Post 2 here in Forest Grove. I'm a 20-year U.S. Army veteran who served 4.5 years overseas in Vietnam and Germany. After reviewing the Forest Grove 2040 plan, I was pained by the absence of any mention or use of the word veteran in the entire document. I assessed the online site to provide input, which was being collected, but apparently I was a little too late because I put the word in there and offered several different comments, but none of that appeared in the document. So apparently I was too late. When I read the final document and I looked through the whole thing and I don't see the word veteran mentioned anywhere, I wonder if Forest Grove is a city that doesn't honor veterans. If veterans don't speak up and bring it to your attention, does anybody else think of veterans? Does anybody think of those soldiers and sailors and Marines from Forest Grove who gave their lives in their nation's wars? Think about that. We need to do something to recognize those who have served our nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearl. Our next public speaker or public comment is Ms. Alice Custodio. Custodio. Sorry, Alice. I should know too.
Okay, first off, I'd like to let you know that I'm a mother, an aunt, a wife, and eventually a widow of veterans. So there is a lot to affect veterans every day. And if we overlook it, we're missing the point. I am writing as a member of the Forest Grove Veterans Action Network, the broader veteran community, to respectfully request the inclusion of the dedicated support for veterans and their families in the city's Vision 2040 strategic plan and budget. Forest Grove is home to a National Guard armory, a visible and vital symbol of service and sacrifice. Yet the current draft of Vision 2040 does not reflect the needs or contributions of our veteran population. This omission overlooks a significant segment of our community whose well-being directly impacts the social, economic, and civic health of our city. I propose the establishment of a Veteran and Military Family Support Initiative within the Vision 2040. This initiative will affirm the city's commitment to supporting access to housing, healthcare navigation, and mental health services, promoting employment and educational opportunities for veterans and their families, strengthening community integration and recognition of service. Including this initiative not only with state and federal priorities, but also Forest Grove as a city that honors its obligations to those who have served. It is physically responsible and morally sound to invest in the resilience and dignity of our community. We welcome the opportunity to collaborate with the council to shape this initiative and ensure its successful implementation. Thank you for your continued service for considering this important addition to our shared vision for Forest Grove. Respectfully, Alice Custodio.
Thank you, Alice. Jordan Miller. Bless you.
All right, if I went back and told my 17-year-old self I'd be excited about a 2040 city vision plan, I don't know if I would have believed it, but thank you for doing that. Seeing definition, define goals, that's something really neat, and it's I think it makes our city stand apart. A couple months ago, I joined to be on the board to help out with the Downtown Association. I'll make that part briefer, but we've had made some progress. I understand the confusion and everything going on with it, and I've been hacking through it, so please hang in there just a little bit longer, because you're right, it's a big project. I do see the upside for the Downtown Association, just focusing on that downtown section to open opportunities for grants that don't necessarily, it puts us in a less competition when it comes for applying for grants, looking just for the downtown compared to if we were applying for grants as an overall city. All cities can do that. Cities with the downtown or the Main Street program get that specific type of funding opportunities presented to them. But I can't smush everything in that I've learned into 2 minutes, so I will rush through here. Good news on some of those already in collaboration for lighting downtown. That's a project that we have a lot of progress on already, whether or not it's been brought to you guys. Partnerships, we already got a free office space from a local community partner for the downtown organization. So progress is being made, but the main thing of why I'm here, I'll smush into 30 seconds, for the 2040 downtown, downtown 2040 city plan. Again, not having the veterans mentioned in the plan. That was the second part of why I was here. Our veterans make up approximately 5% of the population in Forest Grove. That is a large section of the population, from my opinion, and everybody pictures something different when they think of veterans. I picture my friends. It's the younger veterans. There's veterans we have in our city with tons of wisdom, but we have a lot of energy and a lot of able backs and a bunch of the population that can get stuff done. So I'd love it if veterans were included in the 2040 plan, and thank you for it.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Carol Allery.
Thank you. Good to see all of you again.
I know it's been a month.
So, yes, I hope you had a great summer. I am here simply because today's something different, and my heart is the data center. And the reason it is, I don't know if you know, on July 29th, the Herald I got an online article that stated the problems that Hillsborough is having with data centers and the electrical problems. And one of the things they asked for, I think were really good, was to demand rate transparency for the people, to make growth pay for its way, because, we cannot have any more raises in electric and everything with all that's trying to happen in our state. How much more can the working person or even the senior be able to handle? And then track shut off, which was a monthly, how many people are losing their electricity? Because there isn't nobody looking at any of this. And also, we need to also look at, have we done anything to change since we brought this up months and months ago? I think it's very important, because the people, we don't want to see our people in the city be affected by something we thought was going to be good and turns out to be bad. And it affects the electricity grid, it affects the water grid, the whole many things that it affects. And the little bit of profit it brings in the end, you lose. You should look into that, please. I want to pray that God blesses each one of you, watches over you, gives you wisdom, because this is a hard job and you need his help. And he wants to be here for you. So blessings on each.
Thank you, Carol. Is there anyone else in the audience who may not have signed up for public comment who would like to provide public comment? Okay, seeing none. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to provide public comment? Oh, wait, sorry. Mr. Tim Rippey, come on up.
Tim Rippey, 3334 Edgeview Lane, for the record. Thank you, councilors, mayor. I'm going to mention a couple different topics. So first of all, Oregon Main Street program. I think it would be a disadvantage to the city to backtrack and give up on a program that hasn't even started. I think it would be a reflection on the fact that this city is not able to partnership with the right people and make something work, instead of being adding fuel to the flames of discontent. I think you should be more focused on being pacemakers and collaborating and building the relationships that are needed to make it a successful program. As far as the Crane Street or the Crane Data Center, when I was on council, I made the suggestion that city code be changed, because as it is now, you could build a building that's 400 feet high. There's no height limits that I'm aware of, and I think that hasn't been done. So I think you ought to follow up on that and put a height limit on the construction, because you wouldn't want a 10, 15 story building in downtown Forest Grove that detracts from the character of the city. And then finally, as a veteran myself, I'm in support of the earlier comments. I think that generation after generation, since the Revolutionary War, the veterans have had to speak up for themselves not against, but in front of their elected officials from the federal level on down. And I think it's a travesty that we have to continue to come to the desk here and make ourselves known. We contribute a lot to the community, and we are still focused very much on the service to our country and to the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rippey. Christy Kotke. It's a former counselor public comment situation.
So sorry, I can't hear. Can't hear Christy.
Don't push a button.
Don't push the button.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Don't push a button. Okay. Where was I?
You said one of the things you really liked that you heard from the work session.
Is that sometimes, and we talk about this at the state level with education, when things aren't really working the way that we had hoped, interrupting that process and sometimes pivoting and going in a completely different direction is okay. What I really appreciate about that conversation is the clarity in the recommendations, the hesitation on not going forward until clarity was made, but also the suggestion that maybe we pivot, and this isn't a program that works for this city at this time. So I just love the thinking that we're able to maybe break those cycles of always having to continue with something because we started. Secondly, at the market, at the school district booth, on the heels of the data, Councilor Schimmel, you mentioned the data center conversation. I do really want to encourage this council and the city to get communication out there. I had a conversation with the gentleman and said our electric rates are going up because of the data center. And it was a school district booth, but little do they know that Light and Power is my most favorite, sorry, chief, second favorite police. But and I was able to explain that actually that why the rates were going up slightly. I was able to compare with the rates in Washington County, with which we just saw in the paper. I was also able to explain that the data center, should it expand as the original planning, would be supporting with their own electrical power. He had not, once he heard all that information, it changed how we had the conversation. So the more the city can get in front of that with maybe the frequently asked questions, because that is a huge concern, and I heard it again tonight, and I appreciated the encouragement of increased communication. Thank you.
Thank you. Under 2 minutes. Impressive. Okay. Anyone else in the audience like to give public comment? Seeing none, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to give public comment? Dan Morris. Nope. Yes. They had their hand raised for a minute. Yes.
There it is.
There it is again. Dan Morris. Mr. Morris, can you hear me? What? He's on mute still. Can you unmute? Oh, there you go.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Dan Morris at 4400 Settlers Loop. And my comments are in relationship to the comments made about Crane Data Center. I think there's an opportunity here for the council and the staff in Forest Grove to negotiate terms with the data center. They're not paying taxes for at least 5 years. That's a huge chunk of money that they could donate much of that back into the community. They are advocating in their mission statements how they want to build a partnership with the constituents. This is an opportunity for that to occur. There's many things that are tied to the loss of property tax, one being schools, funding to schools. And so going directly and negotiating a regular meeting schedule with agents of the data center and negotiating how they will contribute to the community in various ways. I think that is a good way to take on this issue. I think it's going to be a bigger issue along the way, and if you have communications going, you have the opportunity for settling maybe disputes and resolutions at a lower level with some conversations going back and forth and some commitments. That's my comments on it at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Anyone else on Zoom like to give public comment? Okay, seeing none, I would like to respond to the veterans in the room and the people who spoke public comment about the word veterans not being in 2040 plan. That is correct. That keyword is not in the 2040 plan. However, within our goal area of healthy and active communities, we have actions 3.1, update the city parks and recreation master plan, which is, I think, an avenue of where like a veterans park. And then also 3.3, explore options for a multi-use recreation community facility that includes space for recreation, events, mentorship, education, and connection. So I understand like why there'd be concern that the word, but I don't want you to think that we don't value our veteran community, our American Legion. I mean, it's the oldest post, right? I think in Oregon and like Western. So we do value all the things you do for our community, and we have not forgotten, and we are not planning for veterans. Okay, we're going to move on now to the consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will all be adopted with a single motion without separate discussion. Councilors who wish to remove an item from the consent agenda may do so prior to the motion. Any item or items removed will be discussed and acted upon following the approval of the remaining items. What is the wish of the council?
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, the consent agenda was moved by Councilor Martinez and seconded by Councilor Marshall. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none, the consent agenda is passed by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 7-0. Item D is additions and deletions. City Manager, do you have any additions or deletions?
I have no additions or deletions. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. City councilors, additions or deletions? Okay, we're going to move on to item E. Sorry for all our presenters with our late start. We are behind schedule. We'll do our best. Our first presenter is our CECOP intern presentation, and I'm going to invite Aaron Park, our engineering intern, and Richard Blackman, our engineering division and project manager, up to the desk. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Erin Park, and I was given the opportunity to be an intern here through an internship program called MECOP. CCOP is just the civil engineering under MECOP. I'm currently an undergraduate student here at Oregon State University and will be going into my final year this year and hopefully graduate my civil engineering degree. Over the course of my internship, I got to see a variety of different projects ranging between just a sidewalk panel being replaced to subdivisions and commercial developments, which is mainly what I worked on. Because the projects were in different stages of development, I got to learn about each step and what goes into the final product. Some projects that I wanted to highlight were the town center improvements, Davis Estates, Crane Data Center, and the CWS Ripple project. First two images on the right there are from when I shadowed our Public Works Department director with the contractor, where they would meet and decide together which panels they thought would need to be removed and replaced. And this was judged based off of whether they were ADA compliant or not. And if they weren't, they were marked and a picture was taken as a record. These other images are just a couple pictures of contractors laying pipes down for subdivisions, as this is something that I often saw during my site visits. Some other projects that I want to mention are the Bailey Meadows subdivision. Boyd Lane has a couple smaller projects going on, Emergency Intertie and Oak Grove subdivision. The most frequent tasks for these projects were site visits and meeting with the contractors. Davis Estates is a 4-phase subdivision that's being developed just east of the city's water treatment plant. The main task that I completed for this development is aid in plan reviews, communicating with contractors and engineers, and inspections, the ones I did most frequently being sidewalk, driveway approach, and erosion control. Plan reviews were specifically for phases 3 and 4 of this development. The city's construction standards and clean water services standards were used to make comments that were then sent back to the developer for resubmittal. I also shadowed one of our building inspectors, Cassie, for inspections on the private side, like plumbing, electrical, foundations, things like that, just to name a few. Through doing this, I was able to have some understanding of a whole other aspect of developing. Another task I was able to complete for this project was a final right-of-way inspection for phase 2. Just one example of something that we found was a water meter reader box that wouldn't close all the way, and we noted this to be replaced with the contractor and engineer, as it could be a potential tripping hazard or something could get in and damage that reader. Crane Data Center and CWS Rural projects are two different projects, but the tasks that I completed for these two were the same since the street improvements overlapped. The street is an extension of Heather Street, which will stretch between Poplar Street and Mountain View Lane. I reviewed plans for the public right-of-way, attended a few meetings, met with the contractors and engineers, did erosion control inspections, and did site visits for private inspections, consultations, and ensuring that the plans match the sites. The images seen here are just a couple recent updates on the progress of the projects, the middle two being from the data center and the other ones being from the Ripple project. When I wasn't working with bigger projects, I had smaller projects to attend to. Getting my ADA curb ramp certification was one of the first things I accomplished when I started at the city. The certification is a course by ODOT for engineers, inspectors, and contractors, or anyone else who needs a thorough understanding of ADA requirements so they can accurately design and inspect the curb ramps. Once I earned my certification, I started to collect data to inventory the new curb ramps around the city that are from the annual curb ramp and pavement improvements. Another task that was completed was watching the annual erosion control training videos from Clean Water Services and shadowing one of the city's building inspectors on her inspections so that I could eventually take some of those inspections from her. Another assignment I had was aiding the reviews of the RFPs for a project called Safe Routes to School. This project is the extension of sidewalks on Mountain View Lane leading to Neil Armstrong Middle School. I was put onto the selection committee where I reviewed the consultant's request for proposals and scored each proposal to help decide which engineering firm was going to complete this work. Another task I completed was related to a gate valve that was in our 10th Avenue control station, the control station being the tie to the Joint Water Commission water to Forest Grove. To assist in finding a replacement valve, I did a couple site visits with the superintendent at the water treatment plant, and he was very helpful in explaining the information needed to complete this task. And to the right here is an image of the leaking gate valve. And the image below is from the annual curb ramp improvements. And in doing this, not only did I learn about what kind of coordination needs to occur between the contractors and the city, but I also got to interact with some of the people that live here and communicate what I know about the projects and answer their questions. Because erosion control inspections were scheduled for every week, I witnessed the progression of how these measures that were put in place held up during active construction. Here are just some examples of the BMPs that were put in place. The leftmost image being silt fencing, which is to keep the dirt onto the site. The next one being something just put into the curb inlet so that sediment doesn't enter the pipe systems. The next one over is a concrete washout, which is for the concrete trucks to clear out their trucks without affecting and impacting the environment. And the final one is a construction entrance, which is where bigger rocks are placed where the vehicles will enter and exit to mitigate the amount of dirt that is tracked out onto the roads. I'm very grateful for all the interactions I've had while during my time here, as everyone was extremely willing to share their knowledge. Since I worked for the engineering department, I worked with them the most. Every engineer has trusted me to assist them on a project that they've worked on, which gave me a broader spectrum of what being a civil engineer at the city is like. Outside of the engineering department, I interacted the most with the building department for shadowing private and erosion control inspections. The engineering department often works closely with the building department, so shadowing the private inspections clarified where the limits for these departments were. I've also interacted with the planning department in meetings to figure out the logistics of a potential project. I interacted with Public Works for consultations or quick questions for projects. I also met everyone at our city's water treatment plant, which helped me learn about the workings of the water distribution system here. Outside of the city, I worked mostly with contractors during site visits, but I've also interacted with engineering firms and CWS during projects, ODOT for my ADA certification, and product manufacturers to find a replacement valve for the 10th Avenue control station. I've learned a wide variety of skills during my internship here. I learned about standards and codes for construction in the city of Forest Grove, Clean Water Services, and ODOT's ADA curb ramps. I also learned about the importance of inspections and completed quite a few over the course of this internship. Plan reviews and generally how to read them was a skill I developed through Davis Estates Phase 3 and 4 for the plan submittals to the city. And not only was this my first job in my field, but this was also my first office job, so I learned a lot about professional communication. Each project has a lot of moving parts, so it's very important to not only clearly communicate, but you also have to clearly understand what people are trying to tell you. I also learned a lot about time management and prioritizing. Some days I would have no deadlines on tasks that I've been assigned, but on other days I had multiple tasks to complete that day and meetings to attend to, so just through practice, I've learned what works best for me when it comes to those busier days. Some courses that I've taken that were relevant during the internship include fluid dynamics and hydraulic engineering when it comes to our pipe systems. Civil and construction engineering materials and geotechnical engineering came in handy when it came to grading of sites, pavement, and for driveway approach and sidewalk inspections. Technical writing was useful when it came to sending emails and resulting inspections, as the focus of this class is to be clear and concise. Although I did a little AutoCAD when editing standard detail drawings, the aspect from this class that was most helpful to me was plan reading. Not only did this class teach us about what symbols represent, we also learned about important concepts in civil engineering. My overall impression of working at the city was that it was a very welcoming environment. Everyone was always willing to answer any questions I had or show me things related to their work so I can be exposed to even more. Even if it wasn't all engineering related, it was useful to know just generally and to understand what role they play in projects I've been involved with. I also have a much better understanding of the municipal side of engineering. Having done the final right-of-way inspection that I mentioned earlier, I was able to spend time out on the sites with the plans in front of me and understand how everything on the sheets correlates with the actual site. This was especially helpful when doing my developer plan reviews. Being able to see the courses I've taken being applicable to the work that I did here was great to see, and it further helped me understand the importance of them. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm open to any questions if you have any.
Okay, thank you, Erin. So one of the things I do at my house at dinner is highs and lows. So I'm curious, what was your high and your low from interning with the city of Forest Grove?
Oh man. I think the high was definitely meeting everyone. Everyone was, like I said, was extremely friendly. I didn't have any negative experiences with anyone that I interacted with. So I definitely think that's a high and definitely something that I'll miss the most when I leave here. And a low, I feel like that's kind of hard to say. Be critical.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have anything off the top of my head right now.
I think there were times that Erin didn't have enough work to really keep her busy. That happens, and she found work to do. But to me, that would have been, I think, close.
Yeah, I'll agree with it.
Rich bailed you out. I love it.
True.
It is probably true. And Rich,
And
you
gave
always,
her another compliment.
yeah, gave you a compliment too. And Rich always does a really good job leading this. And we think it's a vital part of the city and your career. So this is like one of my favorite presentations every year. Does anyone else from City Council have questions or comments?
Good luck to you.
Yeah, good luck. Thank you. I hope you enjoy your next internship, and thank you, Rich.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Next up, we have our team from Washington County, because there's going to be 2 local option levies. So if I could call up Marnie Cool, Assistant County Administrator, Commander David Marzilli, and District Attorney Kevin Barton. I don't know if there's room for all of you, but we can pull a chair up. Good evening. Thanks for coming. You guys have been all over the county with this presentation.
For the Traveling Road Show.
Right, I'm gonna say the Levy Road Show.
Thank you.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, but you might need to talk into it for the CTV.
Is that
Thank
better?
you. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm Lisa Tattersall here with Washington County Cooperative Library Services. I'm here today to share educational information about our proposed library local option levy, Measure 34345. As a public employee, I am subject to political restrictions under Oregon law, and so I'm sharing neutral and non-advocacy information only. Do I have the clicker for the slides? Or does that...
I can give it to you. It's just loading for a second. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. This is maybe a good note that we can compress the presentation and the image size. That may help for future.
Oh no.
Oh no. I'll just keep. So in this presentation, I'll be talking about how public library service is delivered in our county and how it's funded. I would also talk about what the proposed levy would fund, how much it would cost, and what would happen if the levy did not pass. So here in Washington County, library service is delivered through a partnership between Washington County Cooperative Library Services, or WCCLS, 9 cities, and 3 nonprofit associations that all operate local libraries. WCCLS is the primary source of funding for local libraries, and we also provide central support services that efficiently link these independently operated libraries together, creating a countywide system that is available to about 600,000 people. I think we might be on, I'm going to go to the next slide, and then one more, and then we're perfect. There There are 16 full-service library locations in the county, from Banks in the far northwest corner of the county to Sherwood in the south. In addition, our digital library is available 24/7 at wccls.org. Next slide. In fiscal year 24-25, the local option levy represents 45% of WCCLS revenue, and the remaining 55% is a transfer from the county's general fund. The majority of WCCLS total funding is directed toward library funding allocations at 67%. The remaining 33% of WCCLS expenses are for the central services that link our libraries together. The levy would fund programs, resources, and materials that are designed to support student success with reading and learning. Some of the events and resources available to kids and teens include book clubs, Oregon Battle of the Books events, maker spaces, and STEAM programs. Libraries also offer resources for parents and caregivers, kindergarten readiness, test prep tools, and free access to fast and reliable internet. Over 10,000 students participated in library programs designed to support reading, learning, and student success last year. In addition, we have issued over 83,000 library cards to public school students since 2019. The levy would also fund the central services that efficiently link libraries together. Library users can use the shared online catalog to access over 1.5 million items, reserving them for pickup at any of the 16 libraries across the county. Our courier trucks delivered 2.5 million books and other items to libraries in fiscal year 23-24. In addition, we provide online learning tools such as job hunting resources, downloadable ebooks and audiobooks, digital newspapers and magazines, as well as streaming video, all available 24/7 to library users. The levy would fund open hours at 16 full-service public library locations across the county. Most libraries in the system are open at least 6 days a week and provide access to 1.5 million items in the shared collection. Last year alone, there were over 2.4 million visits to WCCLS libraries, and total checkouts exceeded 7.2 million across the system. By borrowing items rather than purchasing them, library users saved $140 million last year. In addition to providing books and other materials, library buildings service cooling spaces for the community during extreme heat, as well as public computers, Wi-Fi, study rooms, and meeting rooms. The levy would also fund children's reading events, including story times, and some of these are offered in multiple languages, including Spanish and Chinese. All WCCLS libraries offer regular events and programs for kids, as well as an annual summer reading program. Libraries also offer interactive play areas that promote learning and social interaction. In fiscal year 23-24, libraries hosted over 200,000 participants at over 6,000 in-person events for kids and teens. If passed, Measure 34-345 would replace an existing 22-cent levy that is expiring in June 2026. The proposed replacement levy would have a fixed rate of 37 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, running from July 26th through June 2031. In 2026, homeowners with an assessed value, so that's not market value, of $348,000 would pay an estimated total of $129 annually, or $10.75 per month. Representing that as an annual increase over the current levy, that would be an additional $54 per year, or an additional $4.55 per month than the current levy rate. Next. If the levy did not pass, reductions in library services would occur. These reductions would include reduced open hours, fewer book purchases, fewer reading events, and a reduced level of services that link libraries together. Some of the examples of those services that would be reduced include fewer ebooks purchased, a less robust online catalog, less frequent deliveries between libraries, and disrupted access to technology. Thank you for your engagement with this presentation. We have more information on our website at wccls.org/levy.
Thank you, Marissa. Do you want questions now or no? Any questions on the library levy? Do you know how much people were paid? Like, what was the previous levy at?
It's 22 cents. Oh, you mean the previous one to the current levy?
Yeah.
The previous levy was, so we raised the rates, voters raised the rates 10 years ago in 2015,
Okay.
from 17 cents to 22
22.
cents. So there's not been an increase in the levy rate in 10 years.
10 years. And it's a 17-cent increase. Yeah.
It was 17, then 22, and then this would be 37. Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to public safety.
All right, thank you. Good evening. My name is Dave Marzilli. I am a commander at the Washington County Sheriff's Office. I'm also going to present on local option levy measure 34-346. This will be fact-based, non-advocacy information that I'll be sharing with you. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge that each of us has different life experiences and that some of the content in this presentation refers to topics that could be triggering to some people and includes mentions of abuse or violence experienced by adults and children. I just want to briefly mention those topics, and I'm not going to go into details, but in order to provide a full picture of what the public safety levy supports, I just want to give you a heads up before we start the presentation.
And once again, my name's Kevin Barton, DA. It's good to see you all. Thank you for the time here. And before I get into the levy, I want to say I was sitting in the back listening to the engineer intern. So impressed. What a great program you all have. I mentioned that my summer job was G.I. Joe's when I was in college, and so I'm just really, really impressed with what you're able to offer. G.I. Joe's was great, but nothing like what we heard.
Yeah, R.I.P.
What's that?
That R.I.P. G.I. Joe.
I know. Well, anyway, thank you. I have no disclaimers because I'm an elected official, like all of you. I can advocate for anything, and so I'm advocating hard for this levy, and so I'm excited to have this presentation here. We're going to go back and forth through about a dozen slides. So why don't we go ahead and get started. So just a little bit of level setting for the background. We're going to have this levy in November of 2025, and it will potentially increase the rate to 66 cents per assessed $1,000. It's roughly about a $6 increase for the average homeowner based on the average assessed value. The previous rate increase happened about 5 years ago, and so this is a rate increase on top of a previous rate increase. We've had the levy for about 25 years, and the reasons, of course, that we have levies, I'm sure you're all familiar with, but it has to do with some of the structure for Oregon property taxes. This levy started off as a way to provide extra services, and it has just become essential over time. Without this levy and the roughly 16% of public safety funding that it provides our county on top of our general fund, we wouldn't be able to offer a lot of the core services that all of our citizens and community members are accustomed to seeing. Why don't we do the next slide, please?
So the current public safety local option levy funds 16% of the countywide public safety services. Other sources of funding for that, the remaining 84%, come from the general fund, the enhanced Sheriff's Patrol District for those unincorporated areas of Washington County that pay that, and then other federal and state grant funding. The current levy expires in June of 2026, and it covers that 16% of the prosecution, the countywide law enforcement, things such as the jail, community corrections, probation, parole, juvenile services, and support for domestic violence survivors. And those are countywide services that are provided to people regardless of whether you live within the city limits or in the unincorporated urban areas or even the rural areas of Washington County.
We can go to the next slide. So we'll talk about what the levy would do if it were passed, and go ahead and progress to the next slide. We have several examples of some areas where the levy will provide additional funding if it's passed. So the first two are on the slide in front of you: investigating and prosecuting crimes, car theft, break-ins, and graffiti. There's a statistic up there from the Sheriff's Office that an average of one vehicle has been stolen per day between 2021 and now. And that's an incredibly high number, one that we need to make sure that we reduce. And I'm happy to tell you that crime stats are showing a reduction, but it's still an issue that we are struggling to get a handle of just with the increased car theft and criminal behavior that we're seeing in our county. The other item on the slide is enhanced prosecution of our child abuse and child pornography cases. We have seen an increase in reported child abuse in the last time span coming out of COVID. This is partly because we saw a decrease going when COVID and the schools shut down and the mandatory reporters stayed home. So we saw child abuse reports drop down precipitously. and then rebound back up. It's also, I think, because we're doing a better job of getting people to report child abuse when it occurs. And so while it's troubling to see an increase, there's actually a silver lining because we can only address what we know about. And when there's increased reports, it gives us increased opportunity to address these things. And the levy helps us do that. Next slide.
Some additional services that the levy would support would be expanded assistance to victims of domestic violence and emergency programs for those harmed by domestic violence, as well as preventing domestic violence situations and expand those programs. Similar to what Mr. Barton mentioned on the previous slide, domestic violence reports have increased 22% since 21 to 24 to an average of 4 per day. Also, the levy would help fund efforts to combat deadly drugs that are in our community, things like fentanyl and dismantling those larger drug trade trafficking organizations. As kind of a point of reference, over the past 3 years, the Sheriff's Office has seized 1.3 million fentanyl pills.
Next slide. It should be the slide regarding jails. We can do any slide, though. That's okay. I think it's slide 7, if that's helpful. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you the slide that you're missing. It's an important one. So the levy would help us ensure that we can get our jail back to functioning at full capacity and full speed. So as I'm sure you're aware, our jail has frankly been unable to operate at full capacity now for several years for a variety of reasons. During the COVID years, the jail reduced capacity for social distancing, and there were some significant challenges as it related to both funding, but also the deputies, making sure we have enough deputies to operate the jail. And now the jail has some infrastructure challenges with the physical infrastructure. We reduced our 572-bed jail, which is, by the way, the second smallest jail per capita in the entire state. It reduced down to roughly 388 beds, and it's currently in that area right now. That makes it really hard for us to operate a public safety system because having a healthy jail that can accommodate all the things that we need a jail to be able to do, make sure the rest of the system works well. So Chief Ryman's people, when they go make an arrest, there's only one place to take them, the Washington County Jail. When someone's been convicted of a crime or needs to be in custody pending trial, there's only one jail to hold that person. When someone's on probation and we're trying to engage them to go through drug and alcohol treatment or other classes they may need to take, and we need to have some short-term consequences to ensure compliance, there's only one place, a jail, that can be used there as a threat. If you don't engage in drug treatment, there will be a consequence. If you don't refrain from having contact with your abuse victim, there will be consequences. So not having this jail at full capacity has really made it difficult for our community to maintain the public safety standards that we want. And the levy will help us get that jail back up to full capacity. Next slide, please. Or we can stay on this slide. Go ahead.
I couldn't have said that better myself.
Thanks.
The last area that the levy would fund that we're going to talk about is the mental health response teams that are, again, another county-wide service that are spread throughout the county with member teams, making up groups of specially trained deputies or officers that are paired with a mental health clinician who respond to members of our community who are in mental health crisis and in need of some of those support services. They improve safety and interact with those folks on a daily basis. Last year, the team responded to just under 4,000 calls for service, and 91% of the team's calls resulted in individuals not being taken to jail, finding some other service or avenue for them to go to, rather than bringing them to the jail, which, as Mr. Barton mentioned, that jail space is very coveted space, and so that was open to other offenders who might need to be lost.
Okay, so if passed, how would this impact the average homeowner? Next slide. So as I alluded to earlier, this would bring the amount to 66 cents per assessed $1,000 in value. For the average assessed value home, which is about a $350,000 assessed value home, it would work out to just over $19 per month or $230 a year, which is approximately a $6 increase from the current levy rate. It would bring in a total of about $337 million over the 5-year lifespan of the levy. So it's an incredible amount of money that we really desperately would rely on. Next slide.
So if it does not pass, the services that the levy would provide would not be provided as proposed, and property taxes would not be increased. Basically, any decision about county service levels, if it does not pass, would have to go in front of the Board of Commissioners, and they would work closely with the leadership of County Administrative Office, County Corrections, the District Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Office, and all the other partners to decide what to do from that point.
We can advance to the next slide, but it's essentially a summary slide of what we've already said. So I'd be happy to stop and answer any questions you have. And I'll tell you, I'm sure Commissioner Willie would take all the tough questions. So any easy questions you can address to the two of us.
I was going to say, Commissioner Willie, do you want to come up and take hard questions? You don't have to, but you can. I have one. Well, does anyone on council have a question? Go ahead, Councilor Schimmel.
This is great information. I wonder if there's a 1 or 2 page for each levy, or in terms of public education that's available.
I came prepared. My color printer wasn't working because we're saving money at the county, but I do have it. It comes with one of those QR codes you can scan, and I've got 10 versions of a 1-pager for the public safety levy that I'll leave here.
Thank you. My question is, will the jail be fully operational? Like, will you be able to fully staff all the pods if this levy passes?
Yes. Well, the challenge we have now is because the infrastructure upgrades are the reasons why we have all those pods closed. And so we still have the funding challenges, and we still have our staffing challenges. The staffing of the jail has gotten better. We've hired more people, but they're still in training. And so they're not fully operational. Plus, we've had some positions cut due to some of the funding issues as well. So if this levy passes and if it funds those positions, then we would be able to operate at fuller capacity.
Okay.
Let me see if I can add a little bit to that. And, you know, I can't, of course, speak for the sheriff. I know the sheriff is 100% committed to getting the jail up and running, and she's the right woman for the job. Her background comes from the jail side of the house at the sheriff's office, so I'm very, very happy with all the work she's doing there. I don't know that anyone can promise if A, then B. And so I think it's hard to say for sure that if the levy passes, the jail will be at full capacity. But I can say if the levy doesn't pass, I can't see how the jail can be at full capacity. So the opposite, I feel comfortable saying. And I'm pretty confident we're going to get to full capacity in the near future. We have to.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, I think from what I hear from our community members, right, is that concern, I think that you brought up, right? If someone gets picked up in Forest Grove, they're going to Washington County, and then if they're just released or, you know, whatever. So I'm just trying to figure out how to assure voters, right, that, or assure the community that if you increase your taxes, like you're going to see a result in a safer, you know, I'm just trying to figure out my take on it. So sorry that I'm not trying to like give you a gotcha. I'm just trying to figure out how to be accurate and not promise something we can't deliver, but also like say, I mean, there's a reason that we're doing this, and we really do need to increase staffing in the jail. I mean,
yes. And because I'm not elected, I have to be very careful what I say.
Yeah.
But if we open up our pods that are closed, we will have more capacity, which will allow us to lodge more people. As Mr. Barton mentioned on his slide, we are the second smallest per capita jail in the state, and so that provides its own challenges as well. But right now, we are at capacity with our reduced 388 bed capacity. Right. So we open up, we can lodge more people. There'll probably always be more people that should be lodged in jail than we have capacity for.
There's a couple, just not to dwell too much on this topic, but there's a few things that are creating the pressure point. One of them is jail capacity, absolutely. Another one is that there were some changes in the law a few years ago. Senate Bill 48 was the name of the law, and it essentially reduced the ability for judges to hold people in custody pending trial by reducing bail amounts. It was part of a nationwide, people called it cash bail reform that you might have heard about in the news. And so because of some of those changes in the law that changed how and when and whether people can be held in custody, alongside some of the capacity issues at the jail, alongside some other challenges, the public defender crisis that slowed down the ability to process cases through the system, those things created this perfect storm that made it so that fewer people were being housed in the jail. for the extended period that I think the community members feel like they should be. So coming out of that will be a challenge. We've had, I think, about 2,200, 2,300 forestry leases so far this year. That's an incredibly high number compared to previous years. I mean, it's more than double, maybe triple. I'd have to look at the numbers to give you a firm, quantifier there. But you cannot maintain a public safety system when that many people are just released from the jail every week because they just fail to return after that, and it becomes this death spiral. So that's what we need to get out of, and we're committed to doing.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you all for coming out to Forest Grove tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good night. Thank you.
Good job, guys. I'll leave the handouts.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, our last presentation, thank you for waiting, is our Metro Councilor Juan Carlos Gonzalez.
Thanks, folks.
Hello.
It's great to see you. I'll try and be detailed and quick, recognizing that you have plenty of work. I want to emphasize that from the presentations, the library levy. I'm not sure if any of you use the app Libby, which is the online library app, but it changed my life. I highly encourage y'all to use it. Audiobooks, books, essentially that we're paying for with our tax dollars, and is a great benefit for us. So good evening, councilors, mayor. Thank you for having me. My name is Juan Carlos Gonzalez. I'm the Metro Councilor for District 4, which includes the communities that you see here listed in the screen. And I'm excited to be able to be here to share some updates on specific projects and programs that Metro is working on. You see a photo there's from a chamber luncheon a few months ago. Next slide. And for those of you that are less familiar with what Metro does, I do want to also briefly include a bit of a description, especially for folks that might be watching online or might be in the audience and are wondering, what is Metro, which is always a great question. We are the nation's only directly elected regional government. We oversee we support over 24 cities in the 3-county metro area. And here we are in the western edge, of course. Metro goes all the way from Troutdale and the Sandy River and south to Wilsonville and Sherwood. There are 1.7 million people that are represented by Metro. And as a government, we focus on the large regional scale projects that go beyond the scope of a single city or even of a single county, whether it's infrastructure, major environmental and ecosystems. And recently, we are launching a Future Vision Commission, which will refresh our 50-year plan for the greater Portland area, which, as many of you know, the 2040 Growth Plan is a foundational document to our region's land use. This Future Vision Commission will have a major touch point in refreshing that for decades and more to come. Next slide. So I serve as the District 4 counselor. As you can see here on the screen, this is the map of the 4th district. And I worked with my team to highlight some of my favorite and also some notable areas alongside the district, which show the improvements and also some great sites for folks to visit, just in case you want some recommendations. Next slide. To begin with transportation and planning, I wanted to first and foremost provide the incredible update that the TV Highway Bus Rapid Transit Project has secured $28.5 million from Metro in the Regional Flexible Fund process, which is an incredible accomplishment and, of course, will benefit the city of Forest Grove, the residents, the riders of Forest Grove, but folks in Washington County, the thousands of folks that live alongside Washington County, alongside TV Highway. In this cycle, this regional flexible fund cycle, Metro allocated close to $250 million in different projects. A few of those in Washington County, namely the TV Highway Transit Project, which was tied for the highest funded project in the entire Metro region, alongside 82nd Avenue in Multnomah County. So it just goes to show, again, the amazing support there, but also funding to build a pedestrian overpass in Highway 26 in THPRD for one of the trails there. and also some improvements on Cedar Hills Boulevard in Beaverton. There's also other projects throughout the region, Montgomery Streetcar, earthquake ready Burnside Bridge project that are hopefully going to be moving forward with some strong regional support. Next slide. Another very important topic of housing, as a reminder for folks, in 2018, Metro partnered with local cities and counties in the metro area to create the Affordable Housing Bond. And this voter-approved bond has created an estimated 5,600 affordable homes, which is 1,700 more than we had promised voters in 2018 when this measure passed. Of those homes, 2,664 will have 2 or more bedrooms, and 1,885 will be what's known as deeply affordable for households with incomes at or below 30% below 30% area median income. Last year, we saw the opening of 8 new affordable housing communities, and 9 more are currently under construction throughout the region. To me, it is abundantly clear that our region needs more housing, more opportunity for people to continue to live in the communities that they love and to not face displacement as the cost of living continues to rise. Some of you are very familiar with some of the affordable housing bond projects. Obviously, the Valfrey, one of the first, as well as Plaza Los Amigos in Cornelius, Nueva Esperanza in Hillsborough, as some wonderful examples here out in Western Washington County. Next slide, please. Metro's other flagship program is the Supportive Housing Services program, which is SHS, as many of us know it. This 2020 voter-approved measure provides services to people experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness. These services include, but are not limited to, emergency outreach, shelter, placement into housing, rental assistance, case management, and health and recovery services. Washington County has made tremendous progress at combating the homelessness crisis through SHS programs. Since 2021, the county has used SHS funding to place 2,500 people into housing, has prevented 3,000 more households from falling into homelessness, and created 450 new shelter units, which is super important. It's also important for me to acknowledge that SHS continues to be an engine that is pushing many projects forward. One of the local projects here in Forest Grove is the Casa Amparo Transitional Shelter Project that I know that you have supported and visited as well. And for the first time in the city of Hillsborough, there will be a year-round emergency shelter opening right off of TV Highway, which will provide space for 75 guests, as well as on-site meals, hygiene and laundry facilities, and housing navigation resources on a 24/7, 365-day basis. To make sure no one is sleeping outside. Those numbers and that kind of success is astonishing considering how few resources the county had prior to SHS. So I want to congratulate them and the staff for the incredible work in ramping this program. And before I move to the next slide, I want to leave y'all with a really astounding number, which is each month, 1,400 households in our area receive eviction notices. That's not 1,400 people, that's 1,400 families. And this is the work that the SHS measure is working to support and prevent. Next slide. Earlier this summer, the Metro Council was considering taking SHS back to the voters to do a few things. We thought it could restructure the program, index the tax rate to inflation, and importantly, extend the program to ensure that the vouchers and the resources were being used could be capitalized into projects into the future. Unfortunately, we came to the conclusion that right now is not the right time to refer this measure. We've heard loud and clear from voters, many elected peers, that we need more time to see results and time to build trust with the public before we extend this program. And we are looking to grow accountability and transparency. So while we are not looking to extend a voter measure this election cycle, Metro is committed more than ever to SHS and the people who depend on it. So we are planning to
reform key aspects of this program to create stronger oversight, establish clear performance indicators, and consistent contracting standards, which I know is very important to the council here. So we need to work hard. It is my commitment as your Metro councilor to ensure that these tremendous resources are being put to the best use, but also to address one of the most pressing challenges that our region faces. And lastly, Metro is working on key investments from the Regional System Facilities Plan, which is our regional garbage system facilities plan that we've talked about in the past. It's a 20-year roadmap to strengthen our regional recycling and garbage systems. One of the plan's cornerstones is the creation of a community depot program, in which we want, hopefully once completed, 98% of the region will live within 20 minutes of a depot, providing twice the access to essential recycling and disposal services that exist today. Metro recognizes that many communities do not have access to the recycling, reuse, composting, garbage, and safe household hazardous waste disposal services that our region aspires to. I'm not sure if there's a next slide after this. Yeah, okay, yeah, I think it's that one, yeah. So this project is in the preliminary planning phase. I know y'all know we own land out here in West Washington County that we've been wanting to be able to program to this, and we're going to continue working with you as our local government partners to advance that. We've also reinstated a regional waste advisory committee that has a new composition of representation from across the region that is also providing guidance on that plan. So we are looking for to fill a vacancy which is reserved for elected officials. So if you love garbage and recycling and you love regionalism, applications are being accepted through September 5th. I would love to see the city of Forest Cove represented. And in other news, Metro has been busy allocating grant money to worthy projects and organizations in the region. In June, the Metro Council awarded over $6 million to 12 parks and nature projects across Greater Portland. This year's grants will fund projects ranging from a pedestrian bridge in Tigard to large-scale habitat restoration by an affordable housing complex in Aloha, just to reference some of the Washington County projects. Our community placemaking grant cycle opened earlier this month, which also offers an opportunity for community-led, equity-focused arts and culture projects, and I hope folks will consider applying before the October 3rd deadline. You can find more information on all these grants at oregonmetro.gov/grants. Last slide here. I just want to say thank you so much for inviting me again to spend some time with you, provide updates on the work going on over at Metro. I'm here to represent you. My door, physical and virtual, is always open to you for a conversation. I was glad to welcome Councilor Schimmel a few months ago at Metro, and thank you so much for coming to visit. And thank you for your time today. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Councilor Gonzalez. Any questions for the councilor? Okay, we'll let Councilor Schimmel start.
Well, question on, or comments on a few areas. On the Metro property, the last subject, I believe our B Street Trail runs through Metro property. And I hear a lot of comments about trying to improve that or get it elevated. It refresh me on the challenges with that trail.
The B Street Trail, is that next to the site that Pacific manages, like on the south side of the city, or is this a different one?
I think it's the same one. Are you talking about the? Yeah, it's like it's down on the south side.
Yeah, I've heard similar concerns raised with me, and I'll need to look into that. And I'm more than happy to get back to you so we can give you the exact information.
On the TV Highway Transit Project, I serve on that committee and supportive of the project, and more recently been canvassing, communities, or namely the senior housing communities that use that bus system quite a bit, and we've had a lot of good interaction with ODOT via our city staff about some of the safety concerns as they're facilitating their projects. And so the safety of that corridor is becoming just just some of the projects actually exacerbate the safety in the process of providing better safety. And I think some of the things we'll do is try to reflect on that future transit corridor improvement beyond what improvements are made today, because I think ensuring that we get pedestrian patterns going in the right direction for the most safe route across that highway, I think is important, because today it's really difficult at that Quince and 47 intersection. So just that's an emphasis I'll certainly take to the committee as that project proceeds. So I appreciate your Metro ensuring the safety is as important as the rapid nature of the route. Bus route. On SHS, specifically the contracting standards, I've just asked that Metro, as its overseer, take a concerted effort to ensure that state contract standards are adhered to, that CBOs have the right to control the means and manner of their work, and even consider that the Metro's capacity building team pivot some of their attention toward the county's administrative standards, and ensuring that, because if they're reporting things based on different administrative philosophies, and that can engineer different numbers differently, so you're not getting necessarily an apples to apples from all the counties.
Yeah, thanks, Counselor. On that last one, I mean, the system has grown at a rampant pace. I mean, really from 0 to 100, as the kids say. But one of the themes that we've seen is that although we have regionalized the system, it very much is still 3 counties working independently as in a region. And I do believe that there are efficiencies, competencies at scale, contracting standards that could be improved significantly if the system was regionalized a bit more, which is the very important work that the Metro Council will be doing these next few weeks, to have conversations about what are the improvements that we can make to accountability and oversight that don't require us going to the ballot and asking for more resources. I think that is what voters really want us to continue to do. I feel very proud, again, of the work that has been achieved, but we can't cry victory just yet on homelessness, and we're going to have to really be committed to the long haul, to the services and the programs, and the elements that you mentioned, I think, are really important as one of many to build a robust and resilient system.
Thank you. Councillor Gustafson.
Hi, Councillor Juan Carlos. I wanted to first say that, you just kind of hit the nail on the head. It's important to celebrate, but we're, always keeping our head down to get the work done, because there's a lot more to do. And I'm really impressed with what has been accomplished with all the different partnerships you're utilizing. And it sounds like things are run very efficiently. And you're doing, more with less, just because the amount of success kind of demonstrates this. But I just have 2 questions that are kind of correlated together. Mm-hmm. When you're doing the work on housing, have you used other processes, lessons learned from other municipalities to kind of help you grow and find what's going to work for this initiative for housing? And on the flip side, with all of the positive outcomes you all have had, is there a plan to share any of that, the process and learnings with other municipalities?
Thanks, Councillor Gustafson, for those questions. Currently, the SHS program has 2 oversight committees. One is the regional SHS oversight committee. The other is the Tri-County Planning Board. Each have a bit of a distinct focus in terms of best practices, program improvements, whereas the other is more compliance, financial practices.
kind of like a traditional auditing board, as you would say, which is the SHS Oversight Committee. On the oversight structures, there has been such a big focus on learning from best practices from other cities across the country that we see as our peers, but also cities that we aspire to replicate success from. I mean, there's a lot of case studies that we've seen from Houston, Texas, as well as other cities in the United States. And we have had panels of experts from those cities present to SHS, I guess you could say, officials that might sit on those committees, and also to the Metro Council, and I'm fairly certain to the county commissions as well. One of the things that Metro and Councilor Schimmel alluded to this, one of the teams that Metro oversees with our administrative funds is the capacity building team. And of the many goals and strategies that team has, one of those focuses is to continue to build competency, education, and skills for cities and other providers throughout the region. And so it's definitely something that we see our role in doing, especially as an aggregator of what is going well, because at the end of the day, the important work is being done by the counties, and those resources are being implemented through the county. So yes, to your second question.
Okay. Thank you, Councilor Gonzalez. Are there any? I just wanted to wrap up by saying that you're a tremendous asset to the city of Forest Grove and to Metro. In addition to all the great things that Councilor Gonzalez does, he also volunteers and gives back to his community. So I believe your birthday is coming up, and it's like maybe your 4th annual TV highway cleanup. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to plug that and recruit some people.
Yeah, well, I would love to see y'all there. In the past, I've been honored to have y'all support and attend. But every year since I was elected to the Metro Council for my birthday, we've hosted a cleanup on TV Highway, and we picked up over hundreds of bags of trash throughout that time. This year, on September 6th, we will be hosting that. And I'm actually going to be publishing the registration link on my social media and my newsletter tomorrow. So please keep on the lookout for that. But I would love to see many of you there again. And I do believe that project, which has mobilized over 300 volunteers over those 6 years at this point, is like one of the reasons that the strong community support has helped us secure over $28 million so far for Metro. And yeah, thank you for helping and being a part of that.
Cool. Thank you so much. And thank you for staying late.
Yeah. Thanks,
Okay.
Mayor.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
y'all. Take care.
Take care. I'm going to put it on my calendar. Okay. We are going to move on. Sorry, I'm putting that on my calendar before I forget. That's how you manage a busy life. Resolution. Right. Okay, we're going to move on to public hearings, ordinances, and resolutions. Our first resolution is 2025-48, adopting revisions to City of Forest Grove Employee Handbook and repealing resolution number 2022-50. And we have our Human Resources Director, Brenda Camilli, here. Hello.
Hello, good evening, everyone. And thank you for having me. The employee handbook is on the agenda tonight to be adopted by the council by resolution. So just for those of you who haven't been here for one of these sessions before, the employee handbook is a compilation of general personnel policies governing the employment with the City of Forest Grove for all employees. However, the handbook is superseded by collective bargaining agreements for any union represented employees if there's a conflict in the language or if there's an area that is already covered, a provision covered in the collective bargaining agreement. As is common with cities that have a council management form of government, these policies are adopted by City Council, as I mentioned, by resolution. The current employee handbook was adopted in 2022 and by resolution, and this version that is in your packet tonight would be replacing that version. Included in your packet is a redline version of the proposed revisions to the handbook. We make periodic adjustments to the handbook due to many factors, but primarily legislative changes or clarification. I make notes throughout the years if something comes up and we're wondering, well, that could be more clear, or if there's any ambiguity on any of the policies. These proposed changes that are in your packet have been sent to all the union representatives and unrepresented staff to review and comment on. The city's unions have been provided with the opportunity to discuss and negotiate any proposed revisions that they believe are mandatory subjects of bargaining, or if they're not covered in their collective bargaining agreements, which would supersede these policies. So I'm going to just go over the changes briefly. There aren't very many, but the first three on the back on page 2 are legislative or compliance changes. The primary one is Oregon paid leave, or Paid Leave Oregon, that was implemented a couple of years ago. When it was implemented, there was a lot of work that needed to be done by the state to clarify, provide implementation policies, and lay out how it was going to work. And we also knew that there was going to be several changes coming down the pike every 6 months to the in terms of the implementation. And so what we did at the time is we created a temporary Paid Leave Oregon policy so that we would have something, we would be abiding by the law, but I didn't want to change the employee handbook and make all these arduous revisions until it was pretty final. And that happened recently. There's only one more change going to affect September, so next month, but I did incorporate that. It's just a very minor change. So number one is basically the entire family medical leave policy was greatly revised because of having to coordinate family medical leave, the federal law, with Oregon. They also changed the Oregon leave law and Pay Leave Oregon, so how they all work together and what's covered under what. So it is a little bit complicated, but I think we did a good job getting it all condensed into one policy. So that was one of the major changes that I've been working on for quite some time. The second thing is military leave under Oregon statute has also changed, and the primary change there for people who are in the National Guard, or this isn't military leave, active service, this is people who are on active duty training or inactive duty training. They now are paid, instead of 15 paid work days by the employer, it went up to 21 paid work days by the employer. So that was the primary change in Chapter 9. Number 3 is the temporary policy that I mentioned on Paid Leave Oregon. I just am adopting that as an appendix because it's really specific to Paid Leave Oregon and it's much more clear leaving it there. So those are the legislative and compliance changes. The additional proposed changes, many of them are just housekeeping or clarifications. So the first one is a very short section that talks about employee incurred expenses and reimbursement. It basically just says, it's per diem. And so then I just added a reference to the city's travel and business expense policy and procedure so that employees know where to look to get more information on that instead of adding that all into the employee handbook and making it a lot longer. Number 2, this we decided to put in because of the Oregon Government Ethics Commission, the recent opinion and the city attorney's recommendations, just to include some of the city's current, to memorialize what we're already doing that's considered part of employee compensation. And I know the council is going to be looking at that this evening for the council as well, but things such as once a year we have a holiday party, and once a year we have an employee picnic where the department directors cook for the employees. So things like that, memorializing what we already have in place, basically that would be considered part of compensation. And some of those things are taxable income, which are like gift cards after you've been here so many years. So some of the things, so we're complying with law and all of those things. Number 3 and number 4 both have to do with the criteria that's used for step increases for employees, for merit-based step increases, just clarifying what more objective criteria on how it's determined if an employee is eligible for a 2-step increase, which is fairly rare. We just wanted to make sure that we had a more objective criteria on that. Something that we implemented a few months ago. Health insurance on number 5 is just a clarification. Part-time employees have a different premium split for their health insurance premium than full-time employees. Instead of just saying it's half-time, I put exactly what it is in there so employees would know for 20 hours a week versus, I almost said 75 hours a week, but it's 0.75 time FTE. Lastly, we have a health reimbursement arrangement, an HRA VIBA. You're probably familiar with the VIBA. You've heard about it through all of our collective bargaining agreements. So the city has a different program. Basically, each of our unions and our unrepresented employees have slightly different VIBA programs, and that is money that the city is contributing toward employees' post-retirement health insurance expenditures. Employees can use it now, but they're encouraged to use it when they retire and be able to pay for premiums and things like that. It's one of our most popular benefits that we have. We are exchanging one of the benefits that is in there for unrepresented employees with the same service recognition and retention program that is basically versions of it are in the police contract, which is where it originated. For retention purposes, IBW and AFSCME both have it now too, and so we're just implementing that program and replacing a different program that we had for unrepresented employees, beginning whenever this resolution is passed. Any questions on any of the revisions?
Any questions?
All right, all fiscal impacts have been budgeted in the biennial budget. Recommendation is that the council adopt resolution 2025-48.
Great. Okay. There's no questions. So is there a motion on the floor?
So moved.
Second. Okay. Resolution 2025-48 was moved by Council President Valenzuela and seconded by Councilor Falconer. Is there any discussion? I think it's just like we had to do it, right? And thank you for doing all the work.
Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, so hearing none. Will the city manager please read it by title only?
Resolution 2025-48, adopting revisions to City of Forest Grove Employee Handbook and repealing resolution number 2022-50.
Great, thanks. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, please say aye. Hearing none. Resolution 2025-48 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 7-0. Moving on to Resolution 2025-49, adopting a food and beverage policy for appointed officials. And I'm going to introduce our city recorder, Ms. Mariah Woods.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. So the next few resolutions are the culmination of several events following the Oregon Government Ethics Commission findings that disallowed public bodies from offering food and beverage to elected and appointed officials unless that was part of the official compensation package. So the City Council held a work session on that in July, and following that consensus at that meeting, we have taken the language that was provided by the city attorney and put that into a resolution format for consideration. A few notes on this. It is official compensation, but we do want to note that this is a continuation of practices the city has been doing, and it's not new additional services. I also want to note that these are not, it's not a guarantee of these things being provided to elected, or I guess in this case, appointed officials. It's just allowing that if the city does decide to provide these things, that it's covered. For appointed officials, the budget estimate was at $2,500, and I believe that's everything. If there's any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Yeah, and I just want to can I add a little bit? Yeah. Right. That amount was for the annual board and commission reception that used to be done. I mean, in years past, it was done at the senior center. We moved it to the Grand Lodge 2 years ago. We did not have it this last summer, so that's that budget piece. But that was already part of our budget. Like, we did not increase our budget with this. I guess I just want to clarify. We did not increase our budget because of this resolution.
And then I do want to note as well that it says in the staff report, but that this is specifically appointed officials who are not considered employees. Because some appointed officials are classified as employees, that would fall under a separate policy. So this is only for non-employee appointed officials.
Great. Thank you. Any other questions for Mariah? Hearing none, what is the wish of the council?
So move.
Second.
Ooh. I'll give it to Martinez. Okay, Resolution 2025-49 was moved by Councilor Schimmel and seconded by Council President. Oh, wait, no, I'm going to go. Seconded by Councilor Martinez.
Somebody did it.
Yeah, it's okay. So, any discussion? Seeing no discussion, will the city manager please read it by title only?
Resolution 2025-49, adopting a food and beverage policy for appointed officials.
Okay, great. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say aye. Hearing none. Resolution 2025-49 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council in a vote of 7-0. So it's going to get a little bit clunky feeling. So I will give you my agenda too if that helps you too, Council President.
I think I got it.
So I'm going to go off the dais and then,
Okay.
okay. And then this will be a roll call.
All right. All right. All right. So next on the agenda is Resolution 2025-50. The city recorder will present.
Thank you, Council President. If it's okay with the council, I won't go over the same staff report from the previous one, but this is just the part of the elected official version of that. The only main difference is again, the budget projection that we had for it was $3,000 rather than the $2,500. And again, this is already budgeted because this has been a past practice. And then, as you know, the mayor has recused herself just to stay in line with OGIC rules. With Oregon state rules. Any of the counselors who can't vote on their own compensation package, essentially. Happy to take any questions.
Right. Any questions?
I have one question, clarification. I just want to make sure because it's clear in the report, but I just want to make sure that when you said that the $3,000 per year for meal times is not just for this resolution, but it's for the entire council.
Yes. Apologies. Yeah, that is
Nope,
correct.
that's okay. You didn't say anything wrong. I just wanted to make sure it was.
Any more questions? All right. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept.
Is there a second?
A second. Oh, Councilor Marshall.
All right. So it was moved by Councilor Martinez, second by Councilor Marshall. Yes? Not you? Okay. All right. Any discussion? Mr. City Manager, please read the resolution by title only.
Resolution 2025-50, adopting a food and beverage policy for the mayor.
We need a roll call vote as well.
Roll call vote. Councilor Marshall.
Yes.
Councilor Martinez.
Yes.
Councilor Falconer.
Yes.
Councilor Schimmel.
Yes.
Council President Valenzuela.
Yes.
Councilor Gustafson.
Yes.
So the resolution passes 7-0. 6-0. I'm getting a hang of this.
Okay. Thank you, Council President Valenzuela. We are now going to move on to Resolution 2025-51, adopting a food and beverage policy for councilors elected in November of 2022. And it's the same staff report. We just are separating for voting purposes. So is there a motion on the floor?
So
Wait, I should let you guys recuse yourselves first. Sorry. Would councilors like to recuse?
So this one should be for anyone elected in 2022.
Okay, so
Weird.
yeah, Councilor Marshall would like to recuse, Councilor Valenzuela, and Councilor Martinez. Oh, yeah. I got
Stretch your legs.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so what is the wish of the remaining councilors?
I'll move to
So moved.
Okay. Councilor Falconer moved, and Councilor Gustafson, will put you for the second, if that works. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, any discussion? Seeing none, will the city manager read it by title only?
Resolution 2025-51, adopting a food and beverage policy for councilors elected in November 2022.
Great. Will you also call for the votes?
Councilor Gustafson.
Yes.
Councilor Schimmel.
Yes.
Councilor Falconer.
Yes.
Mayor Wenzel.
Yes. Resolution 2025-50 is approved by the remaining Forest Grove City Councilors in a vote of 4-0. Okay, we're going to move on to Resolution 2025-51. Would anyone like to recuse themselves?
Yes.
Okay, I see Councilor Schimmel, Councilor Falconer,
I'm recusing as well.
Councilor Gustafson. Thank you. Wait, what is the wish of the remaining counselors?
So moved. Yeah.
Okay.
Second. No, you're fine.
Great. Thank you.
I wasn't
Resolution.
saying it right anyway.
You're good. Resolution 2025-52 was moved by Council President Valenzuela and seconded by Councilor Martinez. Any discussion? Will the city manager please read it by title only?
Resolution 2025-52, adopting a food and beverage policy for councilors elected in November 2024.
Thank you, and roll call vote, please.
Councilor Marshall?
Yes.
Councilor Martinez?
Yes.
Councilor Gustafson?
Yes.
Council President Valenzuela?
No,
Yes.
no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
No, Councilor
I apologize,
Habit.
Councilor Gustafson.
Sorry.
I recuse.
My apologies.
Okay.
Council President Valenzuela?
Yes.
And Mayor Wenzel.
Yes. The vote of 4-0 of the remaining Forest Grove City Council, Resolution 2025-52 is approved by the Forest Grove City Council. Thank you, Mariah. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Council. We are now moving on to Councilor Communications, and I'm going to start with our Council President, Valenzuela.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor. So we had the presentation from very important information regarding the library. I think there were a lot of previous questions about what is, that the WCCLS really does, and why is it, important, this levy, why is it important for our library? So it was really great to hear from from Washington County, in different areas today. There was a change for the gathering of the groups. It's not going to be in October anymore. It's going to be in November, but I will get back to you with the date, the actual date. And the CDBG PAB, I was not able to attend. I was traveling at the time, but Councilor Shimel was kind to attend on my behalf. And there we go. Many things took place on that day. There was a tour. This was the one in-person meeting that is held in August every year. So there was a tour and the presentation of Family Promise, the facility. This organization just completed renovations, and all this has been done with funding from the PAB. There was a presentation also from the 2024 Consolidated Plan accomplishments. It includes the home ARP funding to Centro Cultural Casa Amparo, which shelters homeless families. And let's see what else. And I think that's it. For now, for that.
Great. Thank you, Council President.
Report.
Okay, and then I'm going to move on to Councilor Falconer.
Going back sort of in time, JWC, Joint Water Commission, one thing that I don't have, I apologize, this is a little old because we met back in July, so it's been a while, over a month actually. But we received a letter from the Bureau of Reclamation about actually essentially hitting pause and abandoning the work that had been done on an alternative, a seismic alternative for the dam at Hagman. And what they've said is that the current assessment for the total cost of that project will be too much. And we and JWC staff are working with our federal delegation to make sure that one of the suggested alternatives was restriction of use of the reservoir, and them just sort of reiterating that is just not feasible. And so the letter did indicate that they will be reassessing and pursuing a new structural alternative. It doesn't give any information or any kind of leeway about, any kind of lead about what that would be. Simply that the path currently is not one that they're willing to pursue. So I think stressing to our federal delegation is just very important to them to make sure that the restriction is a no-go. And I'm sure we'll get more of an update at our meeting. The other two, I've had 2 chamber meetings since we last met, including attending the chamber's their retreat. And so I was here for most of the day, and it was really it was really great. The retreat was it was really wonderful to see how much the chambers, the various people in the room, they were doing all these exercises about sort of doing their own visioning process, and how much alignment there was between the various organizations. So chamber and city and Pacific and the school district, and how much alignment there seems to be, which just sort of underscored to me, the good work they're doing in communicating in the community. That work plan was not finalized yet at our next, which was the regular chamber meeting, just last week actually. But they did give an update on a couple of things. And that was one very fun thing, is that they were rewarded. They'll be doing a civics B. So it's for middle schoolers.
Did it last year.
And it was so anyway, there was some alignment there between us on the city and the chamber on maybe coordinating as we go through our own civics academy here at the city for the first time. Maybe there's some cross-pollination learning to assist. And I think that's all I got. I didn't want to throw Juan Carlos a curveball, but I have not had any. So I just wanted to mention that. I'm waiting.
Yeah. That's yes.
Quiet.
I think that's county though, right? Or is it metro?
I know I think Juan Carlos serves.
Yeah, it's comprised of a number of different interests, but the managing entity is the county at this point. Yeah.
No one really knows. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Falconer. Next up is Councillor Gustafson.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so at the PAC meeting last week, we talked about the mural again that is in Lincoln Park. It is completed and it is gorgeous. They also discussed looking at different options for art and what the expense will be for different types of art. One of the things that they talked about was a clock that one of the committee members had found that was just gorgeous, but it is kind of a mass-produced thing. So the group decided that was not the direction they wanted to go, because they want to stick with, custom art that's made by artisans and not purchased from a company. They also discussed permanent art locations and rotating art locations. And then they also clarified the budget. And I know, Jesse, they'll probably be talking to you more about, what those locations for art look like in the downtown. So they can kind of mull that over as far as them looking for more art to display. That's all I have for the Public Arts Commission. But I did want to again bring to everybody's attention that DA Barton himself said that he has no disclaimers because he's an elected official, just like all of us, and he can advocate for anything. Again, that's us. Across the country this is done, and it should not be treated as inappropriate when I do the same for downtown revitalization in the City Club. In addition to that, I understand that as council, we have to be very cognizant and good stewards of our resources, all of our resources. But just another reminder that programs do not become first perfect or efficient or exactly how we would like them and then earn a partnership. These become strong because of the partnership which the city was to be a part of. This is what builds a good organization. If the council continues to withhold support, it will take a lot longer to get there. The way to build this success is to partner now so that we can grow together and make it a better organization to better serve our community. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilor Gustin. I wanted to, just because I remember now, and both Councilor Falconer and Councilor Gustin just spoke, but I was wondering if you guys could take it to the HLB and then also to PAC. We have the new trash cans, and I think it would be really cool. Like Neil from HLB, when I was on HLB, had talked about like historical photos. And then also I've been hearing some rumblings that people don't like the new trash cans. And so if public art, like if there's a chance to collaborate between HLB and public art to print some like historic photos or current photos. And I think it's really easy. I've already talked to Jesse about this, to put photos on those trash cans and get some art that way. And, I think it would be cool. So if you don't mind, I mean, if it's okay with the rest of the council, I think it would be a good option of something to do for both goals. Okay, so I'm saying
I'll bring it to PAC, Mayor. The historic picture is a fabulous idea, by the way. And also, it's been discussed about doing kind of like, mini murals on the garbage cans, custom paint and stuff to make it look beautiful. But the historic photos is also a fantastic idea. But I'll bring it forward.
Cool. I saw, like, if you want examples, I think the city of Ashland has done something like that, and I've taken some photos of those and shared them with Jesse during spring break. So I'll find those as well. Okay, great. Thank you. So Councilor Marshall is up.
Parks and Rec, school district report side of it. Cornelius will be open when school starts. Grounds may not be complete. NAM's field lights are up and working. The high school and most schools are starting practices now, and almost all the playgrounds are totally complete. As far as the staff reports, the slide at Joseph Gale was burned in July. Somebody set fire to it, and they've already had it replaced. And they fixed the root damage that was on B Street Trail. I don't know if you guys have been on it since then, but it's actually smooth by the waste management area. Aquatics fall registration is open. Lifeguard certifications classes are starting in fall. And there's going to be no fall pool closure since it was such a long closure earlier this year. As far as rec goes, Camp Grove went for 10 weeks this year. They added some in-house stuff with the aquatics center with aquatic camps and then taking kids kayaking to Hegg Lake. They had Park Flicks, which had about 75 to 100 people come. And they started toddler playtime at Stites Park. And fall rec is open. One thing I wanted to bring up to you guys, there is some concern with a lot of the local nonprofits and the youth sports with the city is partnering with Skyhawk.
Skyhawk.
It's a for-profit organization they're partnering with. The concern with the nonprofits is that they offer the same thing and they would be willing to do it at the same rate, if not free, offer it for the same people. So I've been fielding a lot of emails from that and relaying them to Ann. And so we're working on reaching out to Cody and partnering with those local organizations rather than hiring Skyhawk to do it. So something we're going to be looking forward to partnering with them. So I know that they've already reached out to like FC West. I believe they're going to be reaching out to baseball, softball, and all the other sports around here to see if they can partner with that and try to keep it within the city with the nonprofit. So, and that's basically all I have right now.
Great, thank you. Councilor Martinez?
So let's see, I did not, I was working that night that they had the Sister City meeting, but New Suzanne will be here, the delegation, October 29th to November 2nd. They're expecting 13 people, 10 students, 3 adults. Nicole Nolan, who's the chair, Larissa, I think she's busy as well. I think she's the vice chair this year that was changed up. And also Joyce Phillips are not able to be there. So that could be
Wait a minute.
Interesting.
Wait. Sorry, am I not understanding this?
I think you are. So, 3 of the main people
that
are not
are
gonna-
so then we can't do it that time.
Well, that's what Nicole told them too. That really isn't going to work well for us.
Yeah.
So we have a meeting Wednesday night, so I'll get more information. But that's what
the
I
student.
have right
This is the
now.
student delegation.
Student delegation. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it has to be reciprocal that we can work for everyone.
Mhm.
And this is the student. Yeah, no.
Okay, good.
I feel like, because that's a lot.
It's a lot.
There's
It
no
is a
way.
lot.
Who's going to do it if they're not? There's just no way it can work.
Yeah, I don't know.
Joyce does the reception.
Yeah, she does. And then
Nicole and Larissa do the agenda. They Nicole gets the interpreter.
translates. She said she was going to see if there's somebody else could translate.
The deal
but
is it's a
it's
sister-city
really
relationship, and
difficult.
so
Yeah.
it has to have the core people involved in the exchange that know how it's done. I don't want to do something because it works for one party and then not have a good product.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that's worse. I
know.
And inviting people and then I'm
Mm-hmm.
well, we didn't really do anything and there wasn't this and and we're already having. It's been a challenge recently I would say in the last 5 years of actually having homestay families have kits, right? Because we don't have a Japanese language class in the schools. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my feedback.
Okay.
Sorry for interrupting your
No,
counselor comments.
that's okay. Let's see. And I don't have a lot to information extra for the rural fire district. They have 2 new people trying to get some of the things, the issues now it's turning over the bank account, adding somebody new, trying to get their emails situated and everything. So there really wasn't anything new for that. I attended the Park Flicks, took my granddaughters and some neighbors at Lincoln Park. The Goofy movie, it was fun. It was a lot of fun. And then I went to the chamber luncheon today, and it was good. Same presentation.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Councilor Martinez. Councilor Schimmel.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, the EDC was off in August, but they'll be diving into economic development actions in the 2040 plan, so they'll have a busy year. CCE has been actively working on the ATM. I think they have the clarity they need with a lot of staff conversation about the 2040 plan. So the intention of the ATM is to move the 2040 plan forward in terms of a workshop type of arrangement. And Jesse may add more on that in a little bit. And they'll certainly appreciate our adoption of the food policy because they will provide necessary food and beverages. And my appeal is that if there's a premium to buy in local, that they're permitted to do that. And then on the TV Highway Transit Project, that committee's been inactive for several months, but I've replaced that time with paying attention to what happens on TV Highway. I traverse that daily, particularly the intersection of Quince and Highway 47. So I've had some interaction with the senior housing community folks, one in particular, and I think I've maybe helped to crystallize some credible issues that staff have leveraged their great rapport with ODOT to see some issues addressed within 24, 48 hours and some other issues that are still lingering. So thank you, Jesse and staff, for being so responsive to that.
Well, thank you too for meeting with Mary and, representing us and doing that good work. Okay, I'm going to move on to the city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. Also, I wanted to thank you, Mayor, for your comments about Paul. He was a treasured and wonderful coworker and friend to all who knew him. And speaking from the staff's perspective, we will miss him. So thank you for your comments. Couple things briefly. Community open house. Councilor Schimmel mentioned it earlier. Just to put a date on it, it is October. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Tuesday, October 28th, from 5:30 to 8. The doors will open at 5. Is that at the community auditorium? I didn't catch that part. I think it's at the community auditorium. Is that correct, Councilor Schimmel? Yeah, I think so. So clarity to come on that, but I believe it's at the community auditorium, October 28th, from 5:30 to 8. The Civics Academy that was referenced earlier, it's filled. All 20 slots have been filled. That begins September 10th. Just a friendly reminder to those nonprofits out there, the Community Enhancement Program grant applications, those close on September 17th. So there's about 3 more weeks left for the CEP grant applications. If you have a grant, please submit that. Councilor Schimmel also mentioned the TV Highway Access Management Plan. That project kicked off on August 20th. The consultant team from HDR and ODOT met to discuss the project and tour the corridor. This was in reference to a $175,000 grant from ODOT on how to study the corridor and make it safer. The city did apply for the Housing Capacity Analysis Grant to the Department of Land Conservation Development on August 4th. And on that note, city staff is preparing a grants list, both grants that we have obtained and obligated, and grants that are pending, and also grant programs that we administer, and I will have that for the council by the next meeting. So it just kind of catalogs all the grants that we have in progress right now and where they're at. A couple other updates. The Public Works Administration building, this was a building that was approved in the biennial budget, and also there were some planning funds that were approved in the prior budget. They did break ground on August 20th. If you get a chance to drive by there, please do so. That project will last all the way through the winter. We're looking at trying to complete that in the spring, April of 2026. So that's a much needed improvement that we're looking forward to. Also, if you are driving north on Oak Street, if you recall, there used to be railroad tracks. Those have since been paved over, but the speed limit used to go from 25, and then you would cross the railroad tracks going to the north, and it would actually turn to 55 miles an hour. We heard lots of concern from the community about that, especially now that the tracks have been paved over. The concern was actually going south. It was 55 going to 25. So in working with ODOT and working with Washington County and doing some warrants analysis for that section, Public Works was very involved in that. We did get the speed limit changed, and the county reissued a new speed limit to 35. So it's now 35 to the north and 25 to the south. So that transition. So if you come off Highway 47 and you're going south on Oak Street, that's a 35 mile an hour limit as opposed to 55 now. Councilor Falconer also mentioned the Bureau of Reclamation. No need to add to that. The only other thing I would mention is the Knox Ridge Park project is progressing nicely. It's anticipated to open in September. And if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you, Mayor.
Any questions for Jesse? Okay, seeing none. I'll go over my report. A couple things. Oh, that my mind just went blank. There were some public comments about the data center and the development code. That is on an upcoming agenda. We are looking at the development code. Staff's going to do to my knowledge, there's no pressing application for a second industrial. So I just want to put that out there that it is on the agenda. Do you want to add anything to that, Jesse?
Yeah, no, we are looking at development codes associated with that. The two primary comments that came out of the initial hearings were setbacks and height, and we plan to address both of those and bring some development code amendments forward to both the Planning Commission and the Council. We're looking at this fall to do that, so more to follow.
Okay, Councilor Gustafson.
Sorry, just really quick, and I was going to mention this during my comments, but it aligns with what you said. I did send Jesse some information about creating a moratorium just to make sure that while we are trying to develop changes in the development code, that that we don't have another data center sneak in. We never know how fast that could work for us. So I think that would be the best practice in this situation, and I think it would make the community feel better as well.
Are you asking for, like, what are you asking for from council?
I guess for a conversation, I think that it would be great for Jesse and staff to look into that, what it would look like, how long it takes, because there is a period when you first apply, I think, for that. But I would encourage the staff to look at it as a possibility if the rest of council is supportive of that.
I'm not, I mean, right now, like, I think that I'm not supportive of that currently because, like, it would be a moratorium. What I'm hearing is a moratorium just on data centers. And I don't really know about that. And I think I think staff is doing development code work and comprehensive plan work. And so I think that's the process that we use and have used. And in land use, it's successful. And so that's where I'm at. I don't know. Does anyone else?
I mean, I think, we can't just change land use regulations without hearings. There's proper notice requirements. I think, I'm not a land use lawyer, but I've been in a lot of land use hearings, and you can't just change code without a public hearing and a public process. And I also don't like the idea of making law, policy that is, reactive to a single use in an area that is zoned light industrial. So I'm hoping that, when we're going through, I think you're being very responsive here on council. The staff is being very responsive by getting this in front of the planning commission and getting in front of council. I think that's as fast as you can possibly move. And I would also say that, I don't know what the changes look like yet because I haven't seen that draft code, what those draft revisions might be. But I think, usually when you make significant changes to the rights of property owners that currently exist right there, if you're making significant changes to those rights, you should be working really hard to make sure that you're talking with the property owners and making sure that, they're going to be in this room for those hearings. And doing a moratorium to me sounds like you're passing restrictions on legal rights that people have currently today. And I don't even know that would pass muster with LUBA. I think we would end up in a real problem legally. By essentially what you're saying is you're taking property rights away from people who own property right now in an area that is zoned, that has certain legal allowances on it. So like I'm getting like real caution flags in my mind here. And I think our attorney would probably say, what does a moratorium mean? And how is that even legally enforced?
Yeah. But I'm sorry, I'm really confused because I thought Councillor Gustafson is referring to the builders, the developers of a data center. Am I correct?
You're correct. Moratoriums are used, and I believe they have been used in this situation. It just kind of freezes things until we can get the code figured out. You can't have a moratorium forever, right? There's definitely a limit, and like Councillor Falconer said, there is the process. And if we think that we're going to have the codes back and changed before that, then maybe it's not needed. I was just requesting for a review by staff.
Jesse, can I ask a question, please? How much industrial land do we have? How feasible is it for another data center to show up and request a permit to develop?
I'd have to go back and look at the economic opportunity analysis. I don't remember the exact acreage of industrial land that we have. I think the mayor mentioned it earlier. To my knowledge, there are no pending applications at this point, and nor do we know of any potential applications. But that doesn't mean that we won't get one. We just don't know of any at this point. So,
thank you.
Okay, so is there any consensus to move forward with a work session on a moratorium? That's what I'm hearing the ask is from Councilor Gustafson.
No.
Say no, no, okay. I don't think there's consensus. So we're gonna move on. Thank you. Okay, so that was that. I just want to say a couple things too, and I'm really excited about CCE. They looked at some feedback and they're switching the ATM to a weeknight, the Tuesday. It's in the evening. They're like making it more of like a resource open house, interactive. I think it's like Momentum 2040. Just tell them great job. I'm just so excited about that. And I'm also really excited, just want to plug our community. I mean, I just think I love our whole city staff so much, but then also I'm just going to shout out communications because the Civics Academy was full 2 weeks before the application period closed, right? So that's just a really good job, I think, of, finishing up the 2040 plan, doing the Civics Academy. They also have CEP going on right now at the same time. So just a little shout out for them. We have 5 minutes, so I'm not going to talk too long about the different things, but I do have an ask of council that I would like consensus about. I recently attended the Mayor's Innovation Project conference. They host 2 conferences. One is in January in Washington, D.C., and then one is in the summer, and they change regionally where they are. Literally in my teaching career and as a city councilor, it was one of the best conferences I've attended. It was 3 days. It was like things you could actually use. A lot of it was panel discussion, right? So they'd have an expert. So like the first panel was the right response, the right time, rethinking public safety in cities. It's talking about like alternate responses, different things. But the moderator was Policy Project from NYU Law. And then they would have people from different cities, like either staff or mayors, saying like, hey, these are the things we're doing that are working for our community. So that was one of them. It was like, if you join this, then people who attend the conference don't have to pay the registration fee, but you also get access to their staff and the people that they consult with for things. And so, for example, if we chose to join like climate action, they would give us like a heat action plan or a heat mitigation where we could, like a toolkit we could send out to the community. So oftentimes I think with a staff, like they're doing an economic development initiative. I mean, there's just lots of different things. And so my request, I guess, I'll just get to the point, is that the fee for our city, because we are small, is $1,200. So I'm asking for consensus that we can join and become a member city and help support this group, and then also be able to use resources and then attend the conferences. So that's my ask.
And attending the conferences is an additional charge?
No.
Okay.
Well, you'd have to pay for, whoever attended would pay for their travel expenses, but the actual conference, my understanding, is free. That's what they told me. If you're a member.
So that's the membership.
Yeah.
The 1,200.
And if the city's a member, then city staff can attend. And it says Mayor's Innovation Project, but there were counselors that attended as well. But we all have a choice of what we attend or don't attend. So I think it's really valuable, and I think it's a reasonable cost. And like it was really applicable things that for each session, I was like, I was like texting Jesse during the sessions, like, we need to do this. We need to do that. But anyways, that's my ask. Is there any?
Okay, you give us an opportunity to see material and bring it up at the next meeting.
Yeah, what's the best way? What's the best way to do that? Do you want me to like do a work session or meet with you one-on-one, or I can go, I don't know. You can also look at the website that has all of the agenda and the PowerPoints presentations.
Yeah, if we could get a link. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, can maybe city staff send it out so I
Sure.
don't.
Yeah, city staff can send out a link to the Mayor's
I don't
Innovation
want to
Project.
violate the Oregon ethics by, you know what I mean?
Mayor's Innovation.
Mayor's Innovation Project. Oh, the best part, one of the best things too, was they do a mayor showcase, and it's a 1 hour during lunch on the first day, and mayors come up and they have 3 minutes to like sell like something really cool that they do in their city. So that's all on the website too. You can look at what everyone's doing. I think it's worthwhile, but we'll revisit this at the next meeting. Okay. And then with that, with 1 minute to spare, I'm going to adjourn this meeting of the Forest Grove City Council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Boom.
All right. Amazingly, I didn't need.
Oh my gosh.
I know.